Chapter 1075, The bugs and the divinity are really powerful. 3. You still want to support her? She's really beautiful. Lu Feng said in disdain. Ha ha ha. You can think of it as watching the fun. Maybe tomorrow's wedding will be very lively. Leng Ruoxue said. With that old man's black-bellied personality, the wedding tomorrow would be very interesting. She was looking forward to it. With that, Leng Ruoxue held on to the evildoer's arm and left. Feng De and the rest naturally did not stay any longer. At once, Lu Feng was the only one left in the main hall. Lu Feng was stunned for a moment, then he went to find the Great Elder. The next day. It was the day of Yin Rumai's wedding. Leng Ruoxue and the others woke up early. In the main hall, the Great Elder was already seated, and beside him was Mo Yen, who had a strange expression on his face. When he saw Leng Ruoxue and the others, Mo Yen hurriedly greeted them. Little girl, you've come. Yes, today is Yin Rumai's big day. How can we miss it? Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. Oh right, where's the newbie? Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but ask curiously when she didn't see Second Elder and Yin Rumai. They are still preparing. Mo Yen said with a chuckle. Little girl, there seem to be a lot of bugs in your yard. At this moment, the first elder, who had been staring at Leng Ruoxue, suddenly spoke. Where there are flowers and plants, there will naturally be snakes, insects, rats, and ants. Isn't this very normal? Even though Leng Ruoxue did not know why the first elder would ask such a question, she still answered very carefully. That's true. It seems like we can only blame Second Elder and Yin Rumai for being unlucky. I told them not to meet before marriage, but they didn't listen. Now, it's a tragedy. The Great Elder sighed, his face full of regret. What happened to them? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. They were bitten by bugs yesterday. Mo Yen replied. Furthermore, he could tell from Leng Ruoxue's expression that she was not faking it. It seemed like she really did not know. Oh. It's not a big deal to be bitten by a bug. It's common to sleep in the wild. Leng Ruoxue replied nonchalantly. She wasn't the one who was bitten anyway, so she didn't care at all. It's not just one bite, but a few. Mo Yen held back his laughter and said, hee hee. Since this little girl didn't know, he didn't want to reveal the truth for now. Anyway, they would naturally see it when the wedding was official. They're all god kings. They won't die even if they get bitten a few times. What's the matter? Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Exactly. It's fine to be bitten by a few bugs. Feng De also quickly agreed. Yes, they're still alive and well. Mo Yen also nodded in agreement. At this moment, the butler walked in from outside the hall and reported, Sir Mo Yen, President Lu sent someone to say that everything is ready, and the guests are almost all here. Oh. Then let's go. Mo Yen stood up and said with a smile. The wedding venue was arranged to be at Yin Rumai's residence, and the bridal chamber was naturally Yin Rumai's own. When Leng Ruoxue and the others arrived at the wedding venue, Yin Rumai's courtyard was already packed with people. Ugh! For such a grand occasion, could it be that all the blacksmiths of Fiery City had come? Leng Ruoxue thought to herself, look at the wedding scene today. Are we really just going to marry a servant girl to warm my bed? However, she was rather impressed by the Great Elder's thinking. Second Elder had taken in a bed-warming servant girl and had already arranged it so wantonly. She wondered what that famous tigress in Second Elder's house would think if she found out. Moreover, it was her first time knowing that a bed-warming servant could also have a wedding. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xN0VEL. She just didn't know how different this wedding would be from what she knew. Miss Leng, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to see you here. At this moment, a young man came forward to greet Leng Ruoxue. Ah. You haven't left Fiery City yet? Leng Ruoxue looked at the man in front of her and asked in surprise. This man was the one they had met at the city gates. Including today, this should be the third time they had met. Not yet, but we'll be leaving soon. The man explained with a smile. Oh. Leng Ruoxue nodded. When does Miss Lin plan to leave? The man asked again. I don't know. Maybe I'll be staying here in the future, or I might leave at any time. Leng Ruoxue replied perfunctorily because she could already feel the sour smell around her. Miss Leng, if you have nowhere to go after leaving Fiery City, you can come to my place as a guest. I will definitely treat you well. The man said enthusiastically. Thank you, but I'm afraid we'll have to stay here for a while. Leng Ruoxue declined. It's all right. Whenever Miss Leng and the others are free, I'll welcome you at any time. This is my token. I'll give it to Miss Leng. After the man finished speaking, he retrieved a black token from his ring and passed it to Leng Ruoxue. Leng Ruoxue took the sign and saw that on the front of the sign was a soaring eagle with its wings spread out. On the back was the word Qi, and on the lower right corner was the small word Rui. I didn't expect young master to be from the Qi clan. Leng Ruoxue asked in surprise. Although she had guessed that this man's identity was not simple, she did not expect him to be from the Qi family, one of the 8 great divine regions. It seemed like they had not offended all of the 8 great divine regions. Hee hee. Hee hee. My family is my family, and I am me. Miss Leng, you won't despise me as a friend just because of my family, right? In fact, with his status, it was not easy to make true friends, so he was afraid that Leng Ruoxue would reject him. Of course I won, Leng Ruoxue was very calm. In fact, she really wanted to say that they could not be considered friends. Just as the two of them were talking in low voices, Qi Rui saw a woman walking in from the corner of his eye. He couldn't help but warn, Miss Leng, something's going to happen. Don't get too close to the hall later. What's wrong? Leng Ruoxue followed Qi Rui's gaze and saw a 30-year-old woman who was only at the god tier. She was walking into the courtyard with a righteous aura, and there was a hint of hostility on her body. Behind her were more than a dozen tall, strong, and powerful men. These men were all god kings, and from their posture, they didn't look like they were here to attend a wedding. They were more like here to cause trouble. Chapter 1076, The bugs in the divinity are so powerful. 4. That woman is the wife of the Armament Guild's second elder. She's from the Ning family. Qi Rui explained in a low voice. Although he had never seen the woman before, he had been taught by his family since he was young. Therefore, he was familiar with the family members of some of the big shots in the divine world. Oh. Then there's going to be a show to watch. Leng Ruoxue said excitedly, hee hee. The second elder's real wife had arrived so quickly. Miss Leng, that woman is not to be trifled with. I'm really afraid that we didn't get to see the show and instead got into trouble. Moreover, that woman will definitely, Qi Rui made a gesture of slitting his throat. Don't tell me she even dared to kill the head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild. Is the Ning clan already able to hide the sky with one hand in the divine realm? Leng Ruoxue asked out of curiosity. She doesn't dare to kill the great elder. I'm referring to those who don't have any backing. I'm afraid those people are going to be in trouble. Qi Rui said regretfully. Among the people who came today, there were quite a few blacksmiths. And they were destined to become that woman's tools to vent her anger. You underestimate the great elder too much. He won't just watch that woman kill all the craftsmen here. What's more, no matter how powerful the Ning family is, I'm afraid they're not willing to be enemies with the Craftsmen's Association. Leng Ruoxue was not worried at all. After all, the law could not punish the majority. Even if that woman wanted to vent her anger, she would not dare to kill the weapon master. Ah. It seems that I was too nervous. However, that woman's notoriety in the divine realm is very well known. Anyone who has offended her will not have a good end. Qi Rui said fearfully. Would the Ning family allow her to mess around? Leng Ruoxue raised her brows and asked indifferently. She's Master Ning's most beloved daughter, and her position in the Ning family is definitely second only to one person and above everyone else. Except for Master Ning, no one dares to control her. QiuQiu explained. If it wasn't for the old man of the Ning family, this woman wouldn't have dared to be so lawless. Oh. After listening to QiuQiu's words, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but secretly pay attention to this woman. Not long after, the wedding officially began. Leng Ruoxue looked at the entrance of the courtyard and saw two round balls being supported by someone as they slowly walked in. She widened her beautiful eyes in disbelief. What was going on? Wasn't it the second elder and Yin Rumai's wedding today? Who were these two spherical objects? Little girl, these two are the second elder and Yin Rumai. Mo Yen walked to Leng Ruoxue's side and said with a faint smile. Seeing the two of them like this, he felt particularly comfortable. Moreover, compared to this morning, these two seemed to be even rounder, hee. It was really satisfying. Ah. Could it be that they gave up on themselves and ate too much? But, it's impossible for them to get this fat in one night, right? Leng Ruoxue was still in a state of disbelief over what she had just seen. That's not fat, it's swollen. Didn't I tell you that they were bitten by bugs last night? Mo Yen reminded. Ah. The worms of the divine realm are really powerful. Leng Ruoxue was a little speechless. She never thought that the bugs from the god realm would have such great power. Should she catch a few to raise? In the future, if anyone provoked her, she would release the bugs she raised to bite, hee. She couldn't help but think to herself wickedly. Yup. However, I didn't expect that there would be so many bugs in the city. It seems that the city's hygiene should be properly cleaned. Mo Yen chuckled and teased. I'm afraid it has nothing to do with hygiene. It's character. Otherwise, why didn't those bugs bite anyone? Leng Ruoxue said disapprovingly. Yes, you're right, little girl. Mo Yen thought for a moment and said with a smile. As the two of them bantered, the second elder and Yin Rumai entered the wedding hall that had already been set up. At this moment, the great elder was sitting high up in the main seat, acting as their elder and the marriage officiant and witness. President Lu was the host of the wedding. As for the Ning family's young lady, the second elder's wife, who had just arrived at the wedding scene, she was hidden in the crowd and had not made any movements. However, according to Leng Ruoxue's guess, that woman probably couldn't hold it in for much longer. The reason why she didn't make a move now was probably because she was waiting for a good opportunity. Everyone, please calm down. I now announce the official start of the second elder and Her Excellency Rumai's wedding. President Lu said loudly, trembling with fear. The cold sweat in his heart was pouring down. However, he also knew that there was no way out of this situation. He had also joined Mo Yan's pirate ship, so he had to be the host. As President Lu finished speaking, thunderous applause rang out. Everyone, be quiet. Now, the first thing to do is the wedding ceremony. Since the elders of both men and women are not able to attend, we will be represented by our headquarters, Great Elder. Second Elder, Lady Rumai, you may now bow to the Grand Elder. President Lu braced himself and said. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0XN0 VEL. Calm. Chapter 1077, Killing with a Borrowed Knife, 1, Bow. When the two round balls heard that, their lungs almost exploded. Fuck. They were in such a state, yet he still wanted them to bow to the Great Elder. However, no matter how unwilling they were, they didn't dare to refuse. The two balls held each other's hands and bent down slightly to bow. However, because their center of gravity was too forward, the two of them rolled directly to the floor. The Great Elder looked at the two balls that rolled to his feet and said with satisfaction, Second Elder, Vice President Yin, you're really too polite. There's no need for such a big bow, haha. When the surrounding crowd saw the Great Elder on the main seat lying with his eyes open, they couldn't help but curse. He fell down, okay. He didn't want to give you such a big bow. However, they could also see that the Great Elder was deliberately making things difficult for these two people. Most of the guests who had come to attend the wedding today had seen Unrivaled before, even if they had never seen the Second Elder before. As such, they were quite curious about Unrivaled's current figure. However, many people didn't dare to ask. Only after a few people with more background found out the reason for the Second Elder and Unrivaled's current appearance did the news slowly spread among the guests. Mo Yen arranged for the servants to accompany the two newcomers and help the Second Elder and Unrivaled, who were lying on the ground and unable to get up because they still had to bow to the Great Elder. According to the customs of the immortal realm, the elders in the family, the marriage officiant, and the officiant all had to bow to show their gratitude. Therefore, after the two of them were helped up, they would fall down every time they bowed. Their comical behavior made the guests sneer secretly, but they didn't dare to laugh too loudly for the sake of the Second Elder and Unrivaled. However, not everyone had such concerns. After seeing the Second Elder and Unrivaled's embarrassing state, Feng De and the others couldn't help but burst into laughter. Especially Lu Feng, he laughed so exaggeratedly that he almost rolled on the ground. "Your Excellency, Lu Feng, please pay attention to your image." Feng De, who was standing beside Lu Feng, reminded him in a low voice. He had already seen many people looking at them. "Ha ha ha. This is really too funny." Lu Feng laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes. The Second Elder and Unrivaled had bowed 9 times in total, and they had also fallen 9 times. Seeing this scene, he really felt that his hatred had been vented. No wonder that old man said he was stupid. Why didn't he expect such an interesting thing to happen at the wedding? AI. That little fox is so smart. It seemed like she had already expected this. However, he believed that the good show was yet to come, because the tigress was coming. Hee. This time, they didn't even need to do anything. The tigress would take care of everything for them. I now announce, after the Second Elder and Unrivaled had finished bowing with great difficulty, President Lu was about to announce that the ceremony was complete, but he was interrupted halfway. "Wait," the Second Elder's wife, who had been hiding in the crowd for a long time, loudly said. Her voice instantly attracted everyone's attention. President Lu trembled in fear when he heard someone interrupt him. However, he kept his mouth shut when he saw the woman who obviously came with ill intentions. The Second Elder's eyes were so swollen that they were only a slit. When he saw the familiar yet blurry figure in front of him, his round body trembled like a leaf in the wind. Moreover, he wasn't the only one. Unrivaled was also nervous and afraid. The two of them thought to themselves at the same time, "Heavens! Why was this tigress here? How did she know about this?" The Second Elder's marriage to Unrivaled was actually a plan they had secretly discussed. They had originally planned to wait for this matter to die down before separating. However, they didn't expect that tigress to find out about their matter and personally come to the Divine Continent. Now, they wouldn't be able to clear their names even if they jumped into the Yellow River. Yen, what are you doing here?" The Second Elder's voice trembled as he spoke. "You really didn't want me to come?" Ning Yen narrowed her eyes and said in a cold tone. She kept scolding him in her heart. "This heartless man, why did I fall in love with him in the first place?" She even wanted to try her best and even used her family's power to help him sit in a high position in the Armament Guild headquarters. Now, great, he had power and influence. He even dared to marry a concubine home for her, and it was such a big deal. When she thought of this, the anger in her heart burned. How could that be? The Second Elder forced out a smile and tried to please him. This ugly woman is the concubine you want to marry?" Ning Yen ignored the Second Elder and turned to Unrivaled. "Ah." The Second Elder didn't know what to say to Ning Yen. In front of the Great Elder, he didn't dare to say that his agreement to the marriage was just a temporary stopgap measure, otherwise the Great Elder wouldn't let him off. "I heard that Vice President Yin is a beauty. Seeing you today, you're indeed extraordinary." Ning Yen said with a mocking smile. "Yen, is here." At this moment, the first elder sitting on the main seat said with a faint smile. Hello, great elder. I'm here to attend my husband's wedding. If I don't show up for such a big event like my husband marrying a concubine, how can the concubine enter our Yu family's door? Ning Yan said with a smile. Well said. It's my negligence. I saw that they were in love with each other and had done it as a married couple. I was afraid that it would affect Vice President Yin's reputation, so I was in a hurry to arrange their marriage. Yen, please don't blame me. The first elder said apologetically. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xn0 VEL. Calm, great elder is too serious. This matter was indeed not handled properly by my husband. In fact, even if he wanted to take a concubine, he only needed to inform me. There was no need to be sneaky. Ning Yan said hurriedly. In fact, she was quite afraid of the first elder, and her father had repeatedly warned her not to offend the first elder no matter who she offended, so even if she was angry, she had to be polite to this old man. Yen has misunderstood. The second elder is not marrying a concubine. The first elder said with an evil smile. Don't tell me she's your equal wife. Ning Yan, was a little angry. Not really, the great elder denied. What's that? Ning Yan, was confused. Even if she wasn't a common wife, she wasn't a concubine, so she couldn't be the main wife, right? That damned man didn't have the guts to divorce her. Chapter 1078, Killing with a Borrowed Knife, 2, Bedwarming Girl. Vice President Yin would rather be a bedwarming servant girl than marry second elder. I was touched by their love, so I arranged everything for them. The great elder said in a well-mannered manner. So you're marrying a bedwarming servant girl? Ning Yan dragged out her voice. However, anyone who knew her would know that this was a sign of her anger, and Ning Yan was indeed even angrier. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that Unrivaled would rather be a bedwarming servant girl to marry her man. And that damned man, even though he clearly knew that she was only taking in a bedwarming servant girl, he still made such a big deal out of it. What did this mean? It meant that there were real feelings between them. Thinking of this, the jealousy and anger in her heart burned wildly. Right now, she really wanted to kill someone. Unrivaled naturally bore the brunt of it and became the main target for her to vent her anger. She pointed at Unrivaled and ordered her subordinates, let this bedwarming servant girl kowtow to me, the matriarch of the house, and offer me tea. Yes. More than 10 burly men said in unison. It was unknown who kicked first, but only a plop was heard. Unrivaled rolled onto the floor. I want you to kneel and kowtow, not lie down. Ning Yan kicked Unrivaled in disgust. Unrivaled wanted to speak, but she couldn't say anything. She felt so aggrieved. Damn woman, isn't she just relying on her status as the eldest miss of the Ning family? Sooner or later, she would teach her a lesson. She would not let Ling Ruoxue and the others off either. You? Make her kneel properly. Ning Yan shouted and ordered her subordinates. Kneel. Kowtow to my family's young miss and offer her tea. Otherwise, don't even think about entering my family's son-in-law's door. A burly man grabbed Unrival's hair and lifted her up like a little chick. Then, he kicked Unrival's knees twice, and 2 crisp sounds were heard. Unrivaled knelt down. But at the same time, a howl that sounded like a pig being slaughtered reverberated through the entire hall. Ah! Unrivaled cried out in pain, but no one present dared to speak up for her. Immediately after, the burly man brought over a cup of hot tea and stuffed it into Unrival's hands. Ah! There was another scream, and a bang was heard. The teacup fell to the ground, and the hot tea spilled all over Unrival's body. Her hands were red and swollen. One could only imagine how hot the tea had been. You're really trash, you can't even hold a cup of tea steadily. This gave her a reasonable excuse that Unrivaled hadn't offered her tea, so she couldn't enter the Yu family. You. You, Yin glared at Ning Yan angrily. Although the other party was the young lady of the Ning family, she had been in a high position in the Armament Guild for many years. Although she didn't dare to say that she could get whatever she wanted, she had never been humiliated like this. Thus, she now hated Ning Yan and secretly swore that as long as she escaped today, she would pay back this humiliation double in the future. What? Ning Yan lifted her eyes and said arrogantly. Great Elder, I'm really sorry. I was originally happy to attend my husband's wedding, but I didn't expect this bed-warming girl to not serve me tea. So, this wedding cannot be counted. I hope Great Elder doesn't blame me. Ning Yan turned to First Elder. Hee, it's fine. However, they did have sex after all, so, First Elder deliberately said half a sentence and left half a sentence. Since Vice President Yin is willing to be a bed-warming servant, he'll naturally grant her wish. Ning Yan was very open and generous. Good. Good. Everyone says that Yan is easily jealous, but I don't think so. Yan is definitely a magnanimous matriarch. The exchange between the two of them had decided Yin Rumai's future. Since Yin Rumai had fallen into Ning Yan's hands, she naturally wouldn't have a good ending. Just like that, the wedding came to an end, and the second elder and Yin Rumai were locked up by Ning Yan. Ning Yan was also temporarily staying at the Craftsman's Guild. She was currently living in Yin Rumai's residence. Ever since she had moved in, the people of the Craftsman's Guild would often hear screams from Yin Rumai's courtyard. They didn't need to guess to know that this was the mistress of the house punishing the disobedient bed-warming servant girl. At Leng Ruoxu's residence. It had been 3 days since the wedding, and everyone was very relaxed. However, Lu Feng looked depressed and sad. AI. In the garden, after Lu Feng had sighed countless times, Leng Ruoxuan, who was napping on the deck chair, opened her beautiful eyes unwillingly. She couldn't help but ask NN, what's wrong with you? Please keep reading 0NMYB0XN0VEL. Why hasn't Yin Rumai been played to death by Ning Yan yet? It's such a pity. Lu Feng said helplessly. You're sighing non-stop just for this? Leng Ruoxue was a little speechless. Wasn't this Lu Feng a little too boring? Yup. Lu Feng nodded his head naturally, not feeling that there was anything wrong with his thoughts. You're so boring. Leng Ruoxue said honestly. That's right. You're really too bored. Have you finished forging the equipment I asked you to? At this time, the first elder's voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. You stinky old man, I'll do it if you ask me to. Then I'll lose face. Lu Feng said in a bad mood, That damned old man actually handed Yin Rumai over to Ning Yan to deal with, even though he knew that Yin Rumai dying at Ning Yan's hands was better than being killed by him. It would be good if it fell, but he was not happy. I'm the head elder of the Armament Guild headquarters. Do you dare to not refine the equipment I ask you to? The great elder's eyes widened as he roared. I'm also the vice president of the Armament Guild headquarters. Even if you're the great elder, you can't control me. Lu Feng refuted. You little brat. I'm going to impeach you now. Do you believe me? The great elder threatened like a child. Are you trying to abuse your power? Why didn't I see you impeach second elder and Yin Rumai when I was almost killed? Lu Feng sneered. The implication was that you didn't care about the evidence and instead, you threatened me. Chapter 1079, Killing with a Borrowed Knife, 3, Why should I impeach them? Wouldn't that be too easy on them? Now, we don't need to do anything. Someone will take care of them for us. The first elder said proudly. Why didn't this little brat understand what he was thinking? He was really infuriated. Don't make it sound so nice. You're clearly a coward. Lu Feng said in a bad mood. However, his words were obviously said in a fit of anger, and he was deliberately trying to anger this old man. You brat, you dare to say that about me? You really don't want to live anymore. The great elder roared. After he finished speaking, he began to chase Lu Feng in the garden. Master! Grandpa! Mo Yen and Lu Yu shouted in unison, their faces filled with helplessness. This old man and young man were like two volcanoes, and as long as they met, they would create intense sparks. However, they enjoyed it and never got tired of it, so it was hard on them, the spectators. Little girl, you should quickly make them stop. Mo Yen knew that he could not persuade his master, so he asked Ling Ruoxue for help. Why did you ask them to stop? Fighting is healthier. Besides, didn't you realize that the more they fight, the better their relationship is? This is their special way of getting along, and others won't understand. Ling Ruoxue said in understanding. Ever since she found out about their grandfather-grandson relationship, she had a clear understanding of the way they interacted. However, after finding out about their relationship, Ling Ruoxue actually felt some sympathy for the second elder and Yin Rume. Those two fools were so afraid of the great elder, yet they didn't know that the Lu Feng she wanted to kill was actually the great elder's grandson. He was really curious about what kind of expression they would have if they knew about this. But, is this really going to work? Lu Yue was a little worried. Her grandfather and younger brother's tempers were exactly the same. They were both extremely stubborn. Don't worry, no one will die. Ling Ruoxue consoled, but her words made Lu Yue even more worried. And reality proved that Lu Yue's worry was not without reason. Not long after, the old man and the young man who were chasing each other in the garden began to fight with real swords and guns. Little fox, make them stop. Otherwise, your garden will be destroyed. Seeing this, Lu Yue quickly reminded him. If even your grandson and disciple can't do anything, how can I stop them? And as the saying goes, if the old is not gone, the new will not come. I have been dissatisfied with this garden for a long time, so I can take this opportunity to change it to a new one. Ling Ruoxue said with a smile. Ah! After hearing Ling Ruoxue's words, Mo Yen and Lu Yu's hearts sank at the same time. They thought to themselves, this little girl is planning to rip me off again. After a long time, Lu Feng and the great elder were tired from the fight, so they lay down on the grass, and the originally beautiful garden was destroyed by them. At this moment, Ling Ruoxue stood up slowly and walked in front of the grandfather and grandson duo. She chuckled and said, are you guys done? Do you want to have another fight? No, we've had enough. Lu Feng hurriedly said. When he saw Ling Ruoxue's smile that clearly had ill intentions, he realized what he had done. He was done for. This little fox would not let him off. How about you? Great elder. Ling Ruoxue's beautiful eyes turned towards first elder. I've had enough too, sigh. I'm old. After chasing for a while, this little brat is tired. The first elder sighed. He had not known Ling Ruoxue for long, so he clearly had not realized that he was being schemed against. Since you've had enough, you can pay now. Ling Ruoxue said with a smile. The sweet smile on her beautiful face made her look extremely harmless. However, the words she said made people feel like vomiting blood. Ah! Pay for what? First elder asked in a daze. For a moment, he still couldn't understand. You destroyed my garden and injured my servants. Of course you have to compensate me. Ling Ruoxue replied matter-of-factly. I admit that we destroyed the garden, but when did we hurt your servant? The first elder looked at the garden that was filled with wolves and couldn't deny it. That's right. Little fox, you can't wrong us. Lu Feng also said. It was rare that he didn't oppose the great elder. Butler, come here. Ling Ruoxue said to the butler who was not far away. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0XN0 VEL. Com, Mississippi. The butler walked over with a bit of embarrassment. Your fight just now has injured the steward. Ling Ruoxue pointed at the uncomfortable butler. Which part of him is injured? Lu Feng and the first elder looked the head butler up and down, but they could not find the spot where Leng Ruoxue had said was injured. His face is injured, sigh. I hope you're not disfigured. Leng Ruoxue pretended to be worried. Little fox, you call such a small wound an injury? Lu Feng was speechless. The so-called wound on the butler's face was at most 2 centimeters in size. Furthermore, it did not bleed much. It was just a small cut on his face, but Leng Ruoxue had said it was an injury. This was clearly a scam. The size of the injury doesn't matter. The steward's face injury isn't serious, but his heart is hurt. If he had taken one more step forward, I'm afraid he would have lost his life. Leng Ruoxue said in an exaggerated manner. Her words made the housekeeper's heart jump and his face turn red. He couldn't help but think in his heart that the young miss was really too terrifying. How could he have been so blind to provoke this little devil? However, his previous master seemed to be in a worse state than him, because Di Ren was still working hard to get his freedom. But in his opinion, Di Ren had no hope of freedom. Little girl, how much do you want as compensation? Name your price. The first elder looked at Leng Ruoxue with interest. Even though he was about to be ripped off by this little girl, he wasn't angry at all. After so many years, he had finally found a girl with the same temperament as him. He suddenly felt as if he had met a kindred spirit, but unfortunately, his 2 grandsons were not so black-bellied. With the status of the 2 of you, I don't dare to ask for an exorbitant price. I'll compensate you according to your net worth. After all, if I ask for too little, it'll be letting down your status. Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. Chapter 1080, Killing with a Borrowed Knife, 4. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Lu Feng was furious. He thought to himself, she's indeed a greedy vampire. She told them to pay according to their value, but if they pay too little, this wretched girl will definitely say, so this is all you're worth. In any case, they would not be able to gain any advantage. Little girl, I really admire you. I'll pay for it. The first elder laughed happily. Then, he took out a pile of multicolored top-grade crystals from his ring and placed them in front of Leng Ruoxue. This should be enough. That's enough, Leng Ruoxue smiled in satisfaction. Then, she kept the premium crystal stones and turned her attention to Lu Feng. I didn't bring that much money. Lu Feng gritted his teeth and said. Damn it, that old man was actually still laughing after being killed. He was really angry. It doesn't matter. You can write me an IOU. Of course, you can also sell your body to pay off the debt like Di Ren. However, no matter what, I will still collect interest. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. You really are a money-grubbing vampire. Lu Feng said helplessly. He resignedly took out a few top-grade crystals from his ring and piled them on the grass. This should be enough. Lu Feng said in an unpleasant tone. It's barely passable. Who asked you to only have this much net worth? I understand. Leng Ruoxue said in an infuriating manner as she kept the crystal stones on the ground into her bracelet. Lu Feng was infuriated. He took out some more top-grade crystals from his ring and pointed at the crystals while gritting his teeth. You're not good. This should be enough. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head in satisfaction. How could she not be satisfied with this unexpected gain? Not far away, Mo Yen and Lu Yu saw this scene and shook their heads helplessly. They secretly made up their minds not to provoke this little girl in the future. Otherwise, they would probably die without even knowing how they died. He stayed there for a few more days. At this moment, the incident between the second elder of the Craftsmen's Guild and Yin Rume had already spread throughout the entire firmament and had become a topic of gossip for the people in the firmament. When Leng Ruoxue found out about this, she only smiled and said, the people of the divine realm are also quite boring. However, these gossips and scandals weren't within her scope of concern. What she was more concerned about was when Miss Ning would torture Unrivaled to death. As such, before Ning Yan left Fiery City, they had been staying there. Apart from cultivating every day, she had also asked QiuQiu to keep an eye on the situation there. Half a month later. In the garden where Leng Ruoxue and the others were staying. Mo Yan, Lu Feng, and Lu Yu were sitting on the stone chairs in the garden and chatting. However, the three of them were obviously not in high spirits. In fact, ever since Leng Ruoxue and the rest went into closed-door cultivation, this place was not as lively as usual. I don't know when they'll come out. Lu Feng sighed and said in a depressed tone. If the little fox was here, there would still be someone who could argue with him. But now, there was no one who could argue with him. And that stinky old man didn't have time to bother with him. He only knew how to hold on to his disciple all day long. He really couldn't tolerate it. If you're bored, you can go to Grandpa. Lu Yue teased. That old man doesn't have time for me now. Lu Feng said weakly. He didn't want to embarrass himself. 3 sirs, something big has happened. Suddenly, the butler jogged to the garden and stopped in front of them, panting. What happened? Mo Yan frowned and asked in confusion. Unrivaled, the butler stuttered. She's dead? Lu Feng quickly asked. Yes. The butler nodded repeatedly. Ha ha ha. That bitch has finally gotten her retribution. This is great. Lu Feng laughed happily. No, I have to confirm it. That woman is too scheming. If it's not her, wouldn't I be overjoyed for nothing? Lu Feng stood up and said very cautiously. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xN0 VEL. Calm, do you think she can escape from Ning Yan? You're overestimating her. Mo Yan said helplessly. However, they really had to go and take a look. After all, Unrivaled was a member of the Craftsmen's Guild, so they had to put on an act. You guys go and see her. I'll go inform Grandpa. Lu Yue stood up and said. The internal affairs of the Craftsmen's Guild involved the Ning family, so it was better for him not to get involved. Anyway, even if he didn't go, Lu Feng would tell him. Yes. Mo Yan and Lu Feng nodded, and the three of them split up. Mo Yan and Lu Feng arrived at Unrivaled's residence together. At this time, the door to the courtyard was wide open, and the two of them walked in without any hindrance. Chapter 1081, Volcanic Eruption, 1. When the two arrived at the main courtyard, they met Ning Yan, second elder, and the others who were about to leave. Lu Feng looked at the second elder with a faint smile and said, Where are second elder and Miss Ning planning to go? Why don't you stay for a few more days? We've stayed here long enough and it's time for us to return to the divine realm. Furthermore, it's my father-in-law's birthday in a few days. Thus, we have to rush back to celebrate with him. The second elder wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said uncomfortably. In fact, he was a little scared. He didn't expect the two of them to come so quickly. They wouldn't be able to leave so easily. How could this be good? It was all this tigress' fault for being too heavy-handed and actually killing Unrivaled. This time, the Ning family was probably going to bleed a lot. Oh. Then why didn't I see the vice president with you guys? Lu Feng played dumb. That. She still has something to do here, so she won't be going back with us for now. The second elder said nervously. Oh, really? But, I heard that the vice president is dead. Lu Feng laughed evilly. This matter had already been exposed. Did the second elder think that he could still hide it? He could not help but laugh to himself. This, the second elder stuttered. She is indeed dead. Ning Yan suddenly said. Oh. May I ask how she died? Lu Feng asked calmly, and couldn't help but secretly sigh. This second elder was actually not as daring as a woman to take responsibility for her actions, he was really too useless. I told her to set the rules, but I didn't expect her body to be so weak. She didn't last long before she died. A human life was nothing in her eyes, so she didn't think it was a big deal to lose Rume. She was sure that the Craftsmen's Guild wouldn't dare to do anything to her. Since Vice President Een has already become the second elder's bed-warming servant girl, this is also your family matter and we shouldn't have asked about it. However, Rume is the vice president of our Armament Guild headquarters after all. She has died without knowing why. You have to give us the Armament Guild headquarters and the world an explanation. Lu Feng said with a faint smile. How could she have died for no reason? Didn't I tell you that she had to set the rules? Her body was too weak to take it, so she died. Ning Yan said angrily. Damn Lu Feng, is he deliberately going against me? Setting rules can kill a god king. I would like to ask Miss Ning, what are the rules in your family? Lu Feng asked curiously. What does this have to do with you? Ning Yan roared in anger. Of course it's my business. Rume is a member of our Armament Guild headquarters. She was fine when I handed her to you, but it's only been a few days. You killed him, don't you think this has nothing to do with our Armament Guild? Of course, if Miss Ning insists that it has nothing to do with us, then I can only ask the President and the Great Elder to personally go to the Ning family and ask Master Ning for advice. Lu Feng said with a smirk. You. What do you want? Ning Yan was furious, but she was helpless against Lu Feng. I don't want anything. I just want Miss Ning and the Ning family to give us an explanation from the Armament Guild. Of course, there's also Second Elder. Because of a moment of pleasure, he actually played Vice President Een to death. I really don't know how hell have the face to stay in the Armament Guild headquarters in the future. Lu Feng said worriedly. This is none of my business. When the second elder heard this, he quickly quibbled. If it's not your business, does it have something to do with me? Lu Feng sneered and asked. He was very disdainful of the second elder's lack of responsibility. Could this even be considered a man? She was simply a disgrace to all men. After hearing Lu Feng's words, the second elder had intended to defend himself, but under Ning Yan's glare, he swallowed his words and did not dare to speak. Rume is already dead. Whatever conditions you blacksmiths have, just state them. Our Ning family can afford it. Ning Yan raised her head and said arrogantly. Miss Ning, that's not right. I've said it before. I want the Ning family to give an explanation to the Armament Guild. If we raise conditions, why does it feel like the Armament Guild is extorting you? Lu Feng said unhappily. That's right. The Ning family must give the Craftsmen's Guild an explanation for this matter. Vice President Een can't die without knowing why. Mo Yen, who had been silent the entire time, chimed in. Miss Ning, second elder, before this matter is concluded, you two can stay here temporarily. Lu Feng said with a smile. He had imprisoned them. After that, the two of them turned around and left. Madam, what should we do? After Mo Yen and Lu Feng left, the second elder asked in a daze. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xN0 VEL. Calm, good for nothing, this is just a small matter. You're so scared. Ning Yan roared in exasperation, then a "pa" sound was heard. With a sound, a slap landed on the second elder's face. Madam, the second elder looked at Ning Yan aggrievedly, not daring to say another word. Not long after, President Lu was ordered to take Rume's corpse away. After Mo Yen and Lu Feng's careful confirmation, they finally confirmed that this person was indeed Rume. Moreover, she had been tortured beyond recognition by Ning Yan, and her body was covered in wounds. From this, it could be seen how heavy Ning Yan's attack was. A woman's heart is the most vicious. This Ning Yan is really ruthless. Lu Feng was speechless as he looked at Rume's body full of wounds. He was filled with admiration for Ning Yan's endless tricks. If Unrivaled had fallen into his hands, he knew that he definitely wouldn't have been able to think of so many tricks. She asked for this. Suddenly, Len Ruoxiu's voice rang in the ears of Lu Feng and the rest. Little fox, you've come out of seclusion. Lu Feng said in surprise. I'm not officially in closed-door cultivation. Len Ruoxiu rolled her eyes at Lu Feng. Unrivaled's matter and the disheveled old man's matter were both settled. How could she officially go into seclusion? Oh. Hee. You've come out at the right time. Unrivaled is dead. Lu Feng reported. Chapter 1082, Volcanic Eruption, 2, I've heard about it. Len Ruoxiu replied perfunctorily. Actually, she had asked QiuQiu to keep an eye on the situation over there. Thus, she had known about this matter at the first moment, but she did not come out immediately. That's right, the second elder is still alive and well. AI. Why didn't Ning Yan torture second elder to death? It's such a pity. Lu Feng said with some regret. Do you want Miss Ning to kill her husband? So ruthless. Len Ruoxiu laughed evilly. She couldn't help but think to herself, does Lu Feng have some deep hatred for Ning Yan? Otherwise, why would he want Ning Yan to kill second elder as well? He was really too ruthless. Hee. You don't know this, but Ning Yan is not only a tigress, she's also a tigress with violent tendencies. Second elder has been beaten up by her many times, so if she were to hit him a little harder, she might really catch him too. Drop. Lu Feng said with some schadenfreude. Ah. Then I wish that your wish will come true soon. Len Ruoxiu was speechless. Hee. Lu Feng laughed foolishly. What kind of wish could this stinky brat have? The first elder strode over with the disheveled old man and said with a little dissatisfaction, Humph. This little brat actually dared to hide something from him, how preposterous. It's none of your business. Lu Feng said in an unpleasant tone. Stop. Settle Unrivaled's matter first, and then you guys can argue as much as you want. Seeing that the battle between the two of them was about to erupt, Len Ruoxiu felt a headache coming on as she spoke hurriedly. Didn't she die? What else could it be? The disheveled old man asked in confusion. Stupid. Unrivaled was dead. However, the Ning family has to give us the Armament Guild an explanation. How could such a living person, and a god king at that, die in vain? It's not easy for us to cultivate a vice president. The first elder patted the disheveled old man's head and said with snot and tears in his eyes. Those who did not know the inside story would definitely be heartbroken for him. In fact, he was excited. Because Unrivaled would not have died in vain. Oh. I heard that the Ning family is very rich. The disheveled old man, who had finally reacted, said hurriedly. He's not just rich. Other than the Divine Master, the Ning family can't be compared to him. In the entire Divine Realm, the Ning family is the most powerful and the richest. The first elder said with an envious expression. Grand Elder, why did I hear that you're friends with the master of the Ning family? Len Ruoxiu asked in confusion when she saw the first elder's evil smile and scheming. What friend? We're just fair-weather friends, and that old man has always schemed against me. I'm just returning the favor. Moreover, the one who died this time was the deputy chairman of the Craftsmen's Guild. I have to give the guild and all the craftsmen in the divine realm an explanation. The great elder's righteous and dignified words implied that this was not his personal matter, but the entire association's matter. As long as it rose to the level of official business, it could not be decided by personal factors. Therefore, this time, the great elder was self-righteous and wanted to kill people. Since that's the case, we have to seek justice for Vice President Yin. Len Ruoxiu chuckled. She wasn't the one who was about to be slaughtered anyway, so she was happy to watch the show. Immediately after, the Great Elder sent the news back to the Divine Realms Craftsmen's Guild. Half a month later, the Craftsmen's Guild sent another elder, and accompanying him was a representative sent by the Ning family. The person sent by the Ning family was definitely an important figure in the Ning family, because he was the next master of the Ning family, Ning Haolan. The first thing Ning Haolan did after arriving in Yanhua City was to pay a visit to the First Elder. At the same time, First Elder was in the garden, telling Leng Ruoxue and the others about Ning Haolan's glorious deeds. That Ning Haolan is a rare genius. He had already become a god king before he was even 40 years old. Because of Ning Haolan, his clan had already become the pride of the Ning clan. He had even been designated as the next clan head of the Ning clan long ago and had always been learning from that old fogey. He really did not think that the old fogey would actually send him out this time, hee. It seems like he's trying to train him. The First Elder laughed softly. He's not even 40 years old yet. What's the relationship between him and the head of the Ning family? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. Since Master Ning was friends with the First Elder, he must be quite old. He couldn't have a son this young, right? I guess he's his grandson. That old man has too many children, and he doesn't even recognize many of them, haha. The First Elder felt that it was funny. Ah. Hearing First Elder's words, Leng Ruoxue was speechless. He had so many children that even the father could not recognize them. How many children did he have? Ha ha ha. Little girl, the strong warriors of the divine realm will naturally have many women, and once they become a god, their lifespans will be extremely long. If they become reverent gods, they will even be able to live forever. So, do you think it's possible that he will have few children? The Great Elder teased. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xn0VEL. Calm, that's true. Leng Ruoxue nodded. At this moment, the butler came to report that Ning Haolan wanted to see the First Elder. Leng Ruoxue and First Elder looked at each other. Then, First Elder stood up and said to the crowd, "Do you guys want to come with me to meet Ning Haolan? This child is not bad. Let's not go first. He's probably looking for you to talk about Unrivaled. It's not appropriate for us to go." Leng Ruoxue chuckled. All right then. I'll let you two meet in the future if I have the chance. The Grand Elder said before heading to the front hall to meet Ning Haolan. The First Elder and Ning Haolan had a secret discussion for almost a day. After the discussion, the First Elder did not tell anyone what they talked about. However, Leng Ruoxue and the others were not too concerned about it. After that, Ning Haolan took Second Elder and Ning Yan with him. 3 days later, the news of the Second Elder's death came from the God world. The crowd was speechless when they heard the news. Not only had the Second Elder died, but he had also been killed by Ning Yan's domestic violence. It was too amazing. After Ning Yan had tortured a god king to death, another god king had died by her hands. Everyone was deeply impressed by her means. In their hearts, Ning Yan was definitely a god king killer. After Unrivaled and the Second Elder's matter had come to an end, Leng Ruoxue and the others continued on their journey to search for the divine fire. This time, apart from Lu Feng, there were 3 more people with them. Chapter 1083, Volcanic Eruption, 3. The excuse that Mo Yen and the First Elder came with was quite reasonable. They said that they wanted to help the disheveled old man. After all, the disheveled old man was a craftsman, and they had high hopes for him. Therefore, if they were to encounter any danger, they could also help. As for Liyue following him, Leng Ruoxue could not understand. Liyue's reason was that the disheveled old man was his younger brother's disciple, which meant that he was his disciple. For something as important as advancing his life's flame, he had to follow. However, from Leng Ruoxue's point of view, the 3 of them were obviously bored out of their minds. That was why they insisted on following them. In reality, they were only there to search for the divine flame. As for upgrading their natal flame, it would not be something that could be done in a short period of time. Moreover, with these great Buddhas following them, it would not be so convenient for them to enter the bracelet. However, it would also be much safer for them. The group searched the godly mainland for 3 months, but there was still no trace of the godly fire. This made everyone wonder if the godly fire still existed on the godly mainland. The disheveled old man was even more depressed. The floating cloud city was a medium-sized city in the Qi family's divine domain. Leng Ruoxue and the rest had arrived here after searching the divine mainland for 3 months. In the northern part of the floating cloud city, there was a small, nameless volcano. This was the last volcano that Leng Ruoxue and the others had not found on the godly land. If it was not found here, they could only wait until they went to the godly world to continue searching for the whereabouts of the godly fire. The nameless volcano was located within the floating cloud city. Thus, Leng Ruoxue and the others chose to settle down in the floating cloud city. After finding an inn in the city, Leng Ruoxue and the rest had some food before returning to their own rooms to rest. In the room, Leng Ruoxue stood by the window alone, deep in thought. Shui, what are you thinking about? The demon walked over and gently pulled Leng Ruoxue into his arms. Demon, the small volcano in the floating cloud city is the last volcano on the godly mainland. If there isn't one here, Leng Ruoxue was in a difficult position and did not finish her sentence. Hee. Little fool, if it's not here, then we'll wait until our strength has increased and go to the divinity to look for it. Unless the divine fire is extinct, we'll definitely find it. The demon consoled. But the disheveled old man, Leng Ruoxue wanted to say something but stopped. They knew the disheveled old man's expectations for the divine fire. Therefore, they naturally did not want him to be disappointed. He's not a child anymore, he'll understand. There would definitely be some disappointment, but he believed that the disheveled old man would adjust himself. Yes, demon, let's go out for a walk. There don't seem to be many people in this city. Leng Ruoxue suggested. Ever since they entered the city, they had not met many people on the streets. However, this was just what she wanted. She did not like crowded places. All right, he said. The demon nodded and the two of them left the inn. As they walked on the streets, Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer could not understand why the pedestrians were so flustered. The two of them stopped a passerby and wanted to find out what had happened. However, they gave the other party a shock. What do you want? Don't stop me, I still have important things to do. The middle-aged man who was stopped said anxiously. Don't be afraid, we just want to find out what happened. No matter how I look at you, you all seem flustered. Leng Ruoxue asked softly with a smile on her face. That beautiful smile of hers caused the middle-aged man opposite her to be in a daze. The volcano is about to erupt, and everyone is in a hurry to escape. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so few people in the city. The middle-aged man said hurriedly after he regained his senses. Volcano, the nameless volcano north of the floating cloud city. Didn't they say that the volcano was very small? Why are you running for your lives? Leng Ruoxue asked shamelessly. Even if a small volcano were to erupt, its power shouldn't be that strong, right? Was there a need to scare them to this extent? It's a volcano even when it's small. Moreover, I don't know what happened to the volcano in the past month, but it erupted every other day, causing us to suffer unspeakably. As a result, many people in the city have temporarily moved out of the floating cloud city. You guys should also leave quickly. Otherwise, even if you're injured, I'm afraid you'll lose your life. The middle-aged man advised and ran off. Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer looked at each other as they watched the middle-aged man's back. Then, the two of them turned around and returned to the inn. The moment she entered the inn's main hall, Leng Ruoxue saw Fengde and the rest standing there. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xN0VEL. Calm, miss, you're finally back. After seeing Leng Ruoxue and evildoer, Fengde hurriedly walked up to them. Fengde, why aren't you resting in your room? Why did you come downstairs? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. Miss, the innkeeper asked us to leave the inn. He said he was going to close the inn. Feng De explained. Close the shop. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she raised her brows and looked at the nervous manager. Shopkeeper, we don't owe you money for the room, how can you drive us away? Leng Ruoxue looked at the innkeeper and said with slight dissatisfaction. Actually, she was very clear that the reason why the innkeeper wanted to close the shop was probably related to the little volcano that was about to erupt. However, they could not leave so easily. At this time, they would probably not be able to find any inn in the city. Miss, I don't want to either. However, the small volcano in the drifting cloud was about to erupt. Moreover, it was said that the frequency of the volcano's vibration this time was more serious than the previous ones. It was more important to escape. You should also quickly leave the floating cloud city. It's not safe here. The shopkeeper said anxiously, the cold sweat on his face dripping onto the floor. Manager, we won't leave. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. They were here for the volcano. How could they leave before they achieved their goal? Miss, I'm begging you, I'll return the room money to you. Can you leave immediately? I really don't want to die. The shopkeeper pleaded with a long face. Just the checkout fee is enough. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. I'll refund you 2 times. The innkeeper said with a little heartache. Money could be earned again, but there was no place to earn money if they lost their lives. Therefore, he would rather spend a lot of money to get these people out of the inn. Chapter 1084, Volcanic Eruption, 4, There's no need for 2. It's not easy for you to earn some money. Leng Ruoxue said very kindly. Even if she wanted to rip someone off, she wouldn't do it to a manager of an inn. In fact, she just wanted to know more about the small volcano that had been erupting frequently recently. Then what does the young lady want? The shopkeeper was a little confused. Shopkeeper, to tell you the truth, we came to the floating cloud city for that volcano. Therefore, you have to tell us everything you know about that volcano. If we are satisfied, we will immediately move out. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Previously, she had not managed to get much useful information from the middle-aged man. Hence, she would not let the manager off this time. Miss, that volcano is very dangerous. You must not go there. The shopkeeper couldn't help but advise. It's just a small volcano. We're not afraid. Leng Ruoxue said disapprovingly. All right then. The shopkeeper was helpless, but he had to leave. Seeing that he couldn't persuade these people, he could only tell Leng Ruoxue and the rest about the situation of the volcano in detail. After that, Leng Ruoxue and the rest kept their promise and left the inn. Walking on the streets of the floating cloud city, Feng De could not help but ask, Miss, we'll have to sleep on the streets again tonight. There's no other way. We can't possibly not allow them to escape. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. At this moment, on the streets, other than their group, there was not a single stranger to be seen. Furthermore, the shops by the side of the street were all closed, and the entire city was in a state of depression. I'm really curious about the power of that volcano. It's actually able to make everyone in the city flee at the mere sight of it. It's really amazing. Lu Tao couldn't help but ask, her beautiful face full of anticipation. Little girl, a volcano in the divine realm is a natural disaster for the people on the divine mainland, so it's normal for them to run away. Otherwise, once the volcano erupts, the temperature is not something they can withstand. When the volcano erupts, remember to hide behind us. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand the high temperature. First Elder explained and reminded. Then I'll have to trouble Great Elder. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. She was just thinking about how to protect her grandfather and the others. The Great Elder had actually taken the initiative to come to her door, so what was there to be polite about? Good. However, you have to make me more delicious food. The great elder took the opportunity to raise his conditions. That's not a problem. However, you're already a divine emperor, so why are you still so gluttonous? Leng Ruoxue was speechless. The first elder, Mo Yen, Lu Feng, and Lu Yu were all gluttons. It was as if they had not seen any food in their entire lives. That was why their reserves had decreased sharply recently. However, when it was time to collect money, Leng Ruoxue would never be polite with them. After all, these few people had plenty of money. What's wrong with the divine emperor? Can't an emperor god eat? Little girl, you can't look down on the divine emperor. The first elder said pitifully, as if Leng Ruoxue had said something she shouldn't have. Who would dare to look down on the divine emperor? I can't wait to curry favor with you, old man. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. Hee hee. This is more like it. The great elder chuckled. Although he knew that this little girl was only talking about it and was in fact too lazy to curry favor with him, he felt comfortable hearing it. They chatted as they walked. They found a relatively remote place on the street and set up their tents. After a short rest, they went to the nameless volcano the next morning. When they were still some distance away from the volcano, Leng Ruoxue and the others could feel the vibration and high temperature of the volcano that was about to erupt. Furthermore, the path to the volcano was filled with red traces of dried lava and it even emitted a faint smell of sulfur. As they neared the volcano's entrance, the tremors became more and more intense. Leng Ruoxue and the rest stopped in their tracks and observed for a while. However, before they could enter, they saw a 2-meter-tall, fiery red, burning lava spewing out from the inside of the volcano. Instantly, the moisture in the air was completely roasted dry, and their breathing also became somewhat difficult. Leng Ruoxue and the rest immediately floated into the air when they saw this. First elder and the other 3 elders protected them behind them and set up a protective barrier in front of them. Even so, Leng Ruoxue and the rest could still feel the scorching heat. The temperature was so high that it could melt anything. As they looked over, they saw that the places where the fiery red lava passed by had all been turned into ashes. Upon seeing this scene, Leng Ruoxue and the rest couldn't help but feel slightly surprised. After all, this was the first time they had seen a volcano erupting in the divine realm. Its power was indeed extraordinary. No wonder a small volcano was able to scare away the people of the floating cloud city. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xn0 VEL. Calm. Chapter 1085, The 2 Black-Bellied Little Beasts, 1. Not only that, before Leng Ruoxue and the rest could recover from their shock, the second wave of flames surged out. This time, it was even more spectacular and violent than the previous time. The scorching flames burned half the sky red. Heavens! The eruption of such a small volcano is already so terrifying. What if it was a bigger volcano? Fengde looked at the soaring flames that were even taller than him and said in a speechless manner. The eruption of this volcano is a little abnormal. Logically speaking, such a small volcanic eruption shouldn't have such a great power. The great elder asked in bewilderment. Should we go in and take a look? Fengde asked like a curious baby. We must go, but we can't go in now. Let's go back first. Well, go in after the volcano erupts. First elder said after some thought. If they entered now, they would be in danger, because this volcano was too abnormal compared to the one in his memory. Well, let's go back first. Leng Ruoxue nodded as well. If they entered now, they would probably be turned into a part of the lava. With that, Leng Ruoxue summoned the little peacock. Everyone sat on the back of the little peacock and returned to the floating cloud city. When they returned to the tent they had set up, Leng Ruoxue and the rest began to prepare lunch. However, the little peacock was lying on the ground with a depressed look. Leng Ruoxue looked at the unhappy little peacock in amusement and asked, Little peacock, what's wrong? Master, my feathers are burnt. The little peacock was depressed. Oh! My beautiful and dazzling feathers. It was gone just like that. It's fine. Eat this. I guarantee that your feathers will be intact. Leng Ruoxue chuckled as she took out a pure white pill from her bracelet. Just as she was about to hand it to the little peacock, a hand suddenly reached out and snatched it away. What kind of pill is this? Let me see. Lu Yue held the pill in her hand and looked at it. Then, her eyes widened, and she said in a speechless manner, "You actually used a saint-level healing pill to grow feathers for this little peacock? It's really too extravagant." Even in the immortal realm, the price of a saint-level pill was not low. After all, not only were they difficult to concoct, their cost was also extremely high. It was not something that ordinary deities could afford. Thus, saint-level pills had become a hot commodity. Are you going to use divine-level medicinal pills? Leng Ruoxue asked back with an innocent look. Ah. Just use this. Lu Yue took out a pill and threw it into the little peacock's mouth. The pill that Leng Ruoxue took out was naturally kept in his storage ring and confiscated by him. Master, I'm done. After eating the pill, the little peacock stood up and walked to Leng Ruoxue's side. It rubbed against her affectionately and then lay down beside its master. Yes. Leng Ruoxue patted the little peacock's head gently. She did not express any suspicion towards Lu Yue's act of pocketing her pill. After all, even if Lu Yue took the pill away, she would not be able to find out anything about it. All of a sudden, Leng Ruoxue felt a disturbance in the space. She was overjoyed and said to everyone, "I'm tired, I'm going to take an afternoon nap." Ah. I say, little girl. We haven't even had lunch yet, why are you taking a morning nap? The first elder said, somewhat speechless. After being with them for the past few days, he had also discovered that these people were very fond of sleeping. They would always sleep at any time. Sigh. She really didn't know where they got so much sleep from. Shua, I'll sleep with you. The demon quickly said. However, he was secretly guessing in his heart, what's the matter with Shua? He knew that Shua's so-called sleep was just an excuse. She was actually planning to go into the space. Out of curiosity, he naturally had to follow her in to take a look. Ah. You still have to accompany me. First elder was even more speechless. What the hell was this? He had to sleep in broad daylight, and someone had to accompany him. Sigh. Why didn't he receive such good treatment? Thinking of this, first elder felt a little unbalanced. Yes, there's nothing that my Shua can't sleep for. Of course, I have to accompany her. The evildoer said matter-of-factly, not feeling that there was anything wrong with his words. However, the first elder and the other 3 elders felt their hair stand on end because they felt that his words were too nauseating. Demon, let's go in. Leng Ruoxue ignored the expressions of the 4 elders and kept the little peacock into her bracelet. She then pulled the evil demon into the tent. Ah. He's really sleeping. Lu Yue could not help but ask when he saw Leng Ruoxue and the demon enter the tent. He thought that the 2 of them were just joking. How could it be fake, hee. We all like to sleep, just like Miss Fengde said with a smile. In fact, he wanted to go in as well, but it didn't seem convenient now. Yes, I can tell. Lu Feng said calmly. He had spent a little more time with Leng Ruoxue and the others, so he was no longer as surprised by their habits. Hee. Fengde laughed evilly and thought to himself, how would you know about our dirty tricks? Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xN0VEL. Calm. After Leng Ruoxue and the demon entered the tent, they went straight into the bracelet. However, before the 2 of them could stand still, 2 fluffy little balls had already pounced into Leng Ruoxue's arms. One of the 2 balls of fur was black and the other was yellow. They were Bao Bao and QiuQiu, who had been in closed-door cultivation for a long time. The 2 little things kept rubbing against each other in Leng Ruoxue's arms, expressing their longing. Leng Ruoxue, on the other hand, began to observe the two little fellows who had come out of their closed-door cultivation at the same time. However, even after looking at them from top to bottom, she could not find any difference between the two little fellows and before they had come out of their closed-door cultivation. This was too strange. Bao Bao, QiuQiu, have you two advanced in rank? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. Yes, yes. The two little furballs nodded in unison. Oh. But, why can't I see any difference between you two? Leng Ruoxue said honestly. Hee hee. Sister, we're a bit special, so the other beasts' ranks aren't suitable for us. QiuQiu spoke on behalf of the two beasts. I see. What's your level now? Leng Ruoxue asked again. We don't have a level. The two little beasts said in unison. Ah. Didn't he advance? How can it not have a level? Leng Ruoxue was depressed. Were these two little fellows trying to make her happy? Chapter 1086, The Two Black-Bellied Little Beasts, 2, Big Sister, we have indeed advanced, but we don't have a level. Our advancement only gives us more abilities. Bao Bao explained. Her fluffy and cute little face was full of pride. What new ability? Leng Ruoxue asked with great interest. Hee hee. My mind-reading technique has been upgraded to soul-searching technique. Moreover, my mental strength is very strong now. When I advance another level, I will be an adult. At that time, Baby stopped halfway and deliberately kept him in suspense. I've also become bad. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. Hee hee. Big Sister will let you know my ability. But not now. The baby said with a smug smile. Yes, QiuQiu, what about you? Leng Ruoxue looked at QiuQiu and asked. Big Sister, my treasure hunting ability has greatly improved. Moreover, the range of my senses is 10 times larger than before, hee hee. QiuQiu also said with a proud smile. QiuQiu is so powerful. Leng Ruoxue stroked QiuQiu's fur and laughed. Little QiuQiu had woken up at the perfect time. It just so happened that they had just entered the divine realm and were in great need of accumulating strength. Of course, sister, let's go treasure hunting later. The more treasures I find and the higher the quality, the more beneficial it is for me to advance. Moreover, I'm the same as Bao Bao, I still need one more advancement to reach adulthood. Little QiuQiu said impatiently. QiuQiu, what kind of treasure do you need to find the most now? Leng Ruoxue asked. The best ones are, of course, heavenly treasures. I like treasures that are born from nature the most. Artificial cultivation won't do. QiuQiu said after some thought. Ah. Little QiuQiu, your requirements are really not low. Leng Ruoxue's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Heavenly treasures weren't like cabbages, where would QiuQiu find so many of them? Sister, there are many kinds of heavenly treasures. In fact, it's not just medicinal herbs and minerals, but also other things. As for what they are, I can't say for sure. You'll know when the time comes. QiuQiu explained. Yes, but we're helping the disheveled old man to find the divine fire now. After we're done finding the last volcano, well, go and train. By then, QiuQiu can find more treasures. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. QiuQiu's search for treasures was not only good for her own cultivation, it was also an accumulation of resources for them. This was definitely killing two birds with one stone. Divine flame. Big Sister, if you're looking for a divine flame, I can also help. When QiuQiu heard that Leng Ruoxue was looking for the divine fire, it hurriedly said. Are you sure? Leng Ruoxue was a little skeptical. Could this little fellow still find the divine fire? Sister, the divine fire in nature is also born from heaven and earth, so I can sense it. QiuQiu chuckled. Ha ha ha. It's great that QiuQiu can sense the divine flame. Leng Ruoxue was extremely satisfied with this unexpected surprise. Sister, When are we going to look for her? QiuQiu couldn't wait any longer. Its natural mission was to search for treasures, and this could allow it to advance in rank, so it was happy and never tired of this. QiuQiu, that volcano is currently in its active period, so we can't enter it for the time being. We can only enter the mountain after its active period has passed. Len Ruoxue explained. Oh. Sister, take me out to play. QiuQiu pleaded. Then when you go out, you can't reveal that you can find treasures. Len Ruoxue reminded. Yes, yes. I'm just big sister's cute little pet. QiuQiu said in understanding. After advancing, its thinking had also matured a lot, so it naturally knew how precious it was. Sister, I want to go out and play too. The baby also begged. Okay, I'll bring you all out in a while. But don't be naughty when you're out. Len Ruoxue warned. She wasn't worried about QiuQiu, but she was afraid that this little fellow would cause trouble. Sister, I won't cause any trouble. After hearing Len Ruoxue's inner thoughts, Baby Su said in an aggrieved tone. You said it yourself. Len Ruoxue reminded. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xn0 VEL. Calm, yes. Bao Bao nodded and promised. Following that, Len Ruoxue brought the evildoer and the two little beasts away from the bracelet. When the four elders saw the two humans and two beasts walking out of the tent, their faces were filled with question marks. This. Why did they come out so quickly? It had been less than half an hour, and he was already done sleeping. Why did you guys come out so quickly? Mo Yen, as the representative, asked the question that the four of them had. I took a short nap and came out after I was done. Len Ruoxue explained casually. Little girl, what are those two furballs in your arms? First elder looked at the furball in Len Ruoxue's arms and could not help but ask curiously. He was also mumbling in his heart, could it be that all girls like this kind of furry little thing? They're my beastie. They've been in closed-door cultivation all this time. Len Ruoxue explained simply. Yes, I'm QiuQiu. I'm the baby. The two little beasts introduced themselves obediently. However, Fengde and the others who knew them well knew that these two little beasts were not as harmless as they looked. In fact, none of the beastie by the young Miss side was harmless. Ha ha ha. These two little things are so obedient. The first elder chuckled. Yup. She's also cute. Mo Yen also agreed. Just like that, Bao Bao and QiuQiu temporarily deceived the four elders with their unrivaled cuteness. They even became their favorite children. The small volcano in the floating cloud city had erupted for several days. During these few days, Len Ruoxue and the others had been staying in their campsite. That place was quite far from the volcano and there were many buildings in the surroundings. Therefore, it was relatively safe. But now, other than eating and sleeping, they could only play with the two cute little beasts. Sister, help. A few days later, in the evening, Len Ruoxue and the rest were preparing dinner when suddenly, Baby Su's cry for help could be heard from not far away. What's wrong? It's the baby's voice. The first elder asked in confusion. Right now, there was no one else in the city other than them, so why would Baby Su ask for help? Quickly go and take a look. Mo Yen said. After being with these two little beasts for a few days, he liked them very much, and they had indeed brought a lot of fun to them. Chapter 1087, The Two Black-Bellied Little Beasts, 3. When everyone heard this, they quickly put down what they were doing and ran in the direction of the baby's cry for help. After finding Baby, Len Ruoxue and the rest saw QiuQiu struggling in a young woman's arms, while Baby was being chased by a few men in black, jumping left and right, trying to hide. After seeing Len Ruoxue, the baby hurriedly jumped into her arms. Its little body was trembling non-stop as if it was extremely afraid. It kept mumbling, "Sister, save me. Sister, save me." When QiuQiu saw Leng Ruoxue and the others, it struggled even more violently and shouted, "Sister, save me! Save me! Let me go, you bitch! Damned animal, who are you scolding?" The young woman who was holding QiuQiu shouted angrily and even raised her fist to hit little QiuQiu. "Stop! Let it go!" Leng Ruoxue said angrily as she sized up these people. The young woman looked to be in her 20s. She was very beautiful. Her strength wasn't high, only at the early divine realm. However, she had an arrogant expression on her face. Although the few black-clothed men beside her were stronger than her, they were obviously her subordinates. Leng Ruoxue understood when she saw these people. She wondered which family's unruly daughter this was. She probably saw that QiuQiu and Bao Bao were cute and wanted to take them for herself. However, would she allow others to have any ideas about her beastie? "How dare you order me around?" When the young woman heard Leng Ruoxue's words, she was even more furious. Leng Ruoxue's devastatingly beautiful face was something that she could not tolerate. Damn it, how could there be such a beautiful woman in this world? "So what if I order you? Release it immediately, or else don't blame me for being impolite." Leng Ruoxue warned indifferently. "Do you know who I am? How dare you speak to me like this?" The young woman shouted at the top of her lungs. "I don't care who you are, let go of QiuQiu. Otherwise, you'll regret it." Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes were half closed, ready to strike at any moment. Seeing QiuQiu struggling in pain, her heart ached. "I won't let go, what can you do to me? This young lady has taken a fancy to this little beast, it's mine," the young woman said in an overbearing and arrogant manner. "Oh, really? I'll let you know what happens now." As soon as Leng Ruoxue finished speaking, a ray of red light flew towards the young woman at the speed of light. The red light circled around the young woman and the others once before returning to Leng Ruoxue's wrist. It was only then that the young woman could clearly see that the red light was actually a small, beautiful red snake with a crystal-like body. Instantly, her eyes shone. He wanted to take over the little red snake again. "Give me that red snake in your hand," the young woman ordered. Ever since she was young, she had always liked beautiful and cute things. Therefore, after seeing the two little beasts and the little snake, she couldn't help but want them. "Who do you think you are?" Leng Ruoxue said disdainfully. After she finished speaking, she saw the young woman and the rest of the group go limp and fall to the ground. QiuQiu took the opportunity to escape from the woman's arms. However, before it left, it did not forget to stomp on the woman's face a few times. This cute action of its made everyone laugh out loud. "Hee hee. Little QiuQiu did a great job, but your kicks were too light and didn't have much effect on her. Why don't you let me step on her for you?" The first elder was the first to carry QiuQiu and praised it. At the same time, he also released his beastie. The first elder's beastie came out and said loudly, "Master, who bullied little QiuQiu?" "Big Bear, it's them." QiuQiu pointed with its little paw and confessed everything about the young woman and the others. The great elder's beastie was an 8th-rank bear-type sacred god beast. Even in its mimicry state, it was close to 2 meters tall. In the past few days, it had become very familiar with the two little fellows QiuQiu and Bao Bao, so little QiuQiu naturally didn't hold back, directly using the big bear as a hatchet man. "Fuck, how dare you bully my friend? You're really looking for death." When De Xiong heard this, he was instantly enraged. He raised his foot and prepared to stomp on the young woman and the others. Leng Ruoxue looked at De Xiong's foot that was about to land and secretly sighed to herself. This great elder was really ruthless. If De Xiong were to step on them, those people would probably be turned into meat paste. This was really letting them off too easily. "Wait." Just as De Xiong's foot was about to land, Leng Ruoxue suddenly spoke. "What's wrong?" De Xiong looked at Leng Ruoxue in confusion. His huge bare face was filled with question marks. "Be gentle, don't kill anyone." Leng Ruoxue reminded kindly. Hee hee. Don't worry, I won't kill you easily. The big bear laughed evilly and quickly said, then immediately put his foot down. After a few stomps, even though the young woman and the rest were not crushed into meat paste, their injuries were not light. After doing all that, Leng Ruoxue and the rest left. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xn0 VEL. Calm after returning to his own encampment, Lu Feng looked at Leng Ruoxue with a strange expression. He asked in confusion, Little Fox, when did you become so kind? I thought you'd ask Big Bear to kick harder. I'm not that cruel. I'm a kind-hearted good child. Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes and said in a speechless manner. Ah. I didn't find anything. Lu Feng's face was filled with disbelief. Idiot. The little girl clearly doesn't want them to die too easily. Didn't you see that they've already been bitten by that little red snake? The first elder said with a face full of disappointment. How could he have such a stupid grandson? It would be great if this little girl was a part of their family. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel jealous of Leng Xiaoyu. The clueless Leng Xiaoyu was so frightened by the first elder's resentful gaze that her hair stood on end. Grandmaster, why are you staring at me? Leng Xiaoyu asked helplessly. I don't like the look of you, alright? The great elder said unhappily. Then, he carried QiuQiu in his arms and sat at the side to sulk. Ah. What's wrong with this old man? Lu Feng said in a somewhat puzzled manner. He hadn't even had the time to talk back. The old man dodged to the side, which made him feel like he had punched cotton. Chapter 1088, The Two Black-Bellied Little Beasts, 4, I'm fine, hurry up and get to work. Leng Ruoxue urged, feeling amused. She did not even need to use green vessel to read the minds of her babies, but that little fellow had already told her the first elder's thoughts. After she heard it, she could not help but smile to herself. After dinner, Leng Ruoxue and the rest chatted for a while. Just as they were preparing to rest early so that they could enter the volcano the next day, they were interrupted by some uninvited guests. And among those people, there happened to be one of them who was bitten by Xiaohua and stepped on by the big bear in the afternoon. However, the man's injuries were lighter. After taking the elixir, his injuries were almost healed. However, the poison in his body could not be cured. Therefore, the man's face was now like a pig's head. As for their team leaders, they were actually acquaintances. Miss Leng, why are you here? QiuQiu was overjoyed to see Leng Ruoxue and the others in his own territory. Why has young Master Qi also come to the floating cloud city? Leng Ruoxue chuckled and asked indifferently. After seeing QiuQiu, she understood the identity of those people in the afternoon. They were from the Qi family, one of the 8 great divine regions. No wonder they were so overbearing. The floating cloud city's volcano erupted, so I've come to check on the losses. QiuQiu explained and then asked, where is Miss Leng and the others? We came to that volcano to train, but we didn't expect it to erupt just in time, so we stayed here. Leng Ruoxue replied perfunctorily. Oh. QiuQiu nodded. At this time, the pig head beside him said impatiently, Young master, these are the people who injured the young lady and us. You shut up. QiuQiu bellowed. Actually, he was in a difficult position. Although he didn't want to be enemies with Leng Ruoxue and the others, he couldn't just ignore the matter of his unruly cousin. How could this be good? His brows were so tightly knitted that they were about to come together. Young Master Qi, are you here to settle the score with us? Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. Ah. No, I just heard from my subordinate that my cousin was bullied just now, so I came to take a look. QiuQiu quickly explained. That woman is your cousin. They and the pig beside you were all injured by me. I wonder how young Master Qi would like to deal with them. Leng Ruoxue went straight to the point. She didn't care how conflicted QiuQiu was. They had only met a few times anyway. However, if QiuQiu was a reasonable person, there was no harm in befriending him. Ah. I believe that what happened this afternoon was a misunderstanding, so our Qi family will not pursue this matter. However, can Miss Leng please give me the antidote? They were bitten by your little red snake, and I have given them many antidotes, but none of them had any effect. QiuQiu said very politely. There is no antidote, unless they let Xiaohua bite them again. However, if that happens, they will be poisoned even more severely. Young Master Qi, you can let them choose. Leng Ruoxua laughed evilly. Even if your Qi family doesn't want to pursue this matter, she still wants to. Not just anyone could covet her beastie. This, QiuQiu was in a difficult position. Young Master Qi, did you just say that your Qi clan will not pursue this matter? Leng Ruoxua chuckled as she asked. Yes, I am. QiuQiu nodded, his handsome face full of question marks. He thought to himself, what does Miss Leng mean? You guys don't want to pursue it, but what if I want to pursue it? Leng Ruoxua's face was filled with worry. Ah. QiuQiu was speechless. He really didn't know what to say. Young Master Qi, because of your cousin's rudeness, my cute little QiuQiu and baby have been hurt physically and mentally. How do you think we should settle this score? Leng Ruoxua said with a smile that was not a smile. Before she knew that the woman was from the Qi family, she only wanted to make the woman wish she was dead. However, now that she knew that she was the young lady of the Qi family, why should she be polite? If he didn't slaughter them now, when would he? Ah. Can you let me see the two little beasts first? He had heard some of his cousin's subordinates mention what had happened before. However, he naturally did not believe everything that her subordinates said. Alright, QiuQiu, baby, come over. Leng Ruoxua called out to the corner. Sister, we're here. A weak voice rang in everyone's ears. Everyone turned around in unison and saw two dirty little beasts limping out from the corner. The two little beasts' furs were dull and covered in dust. Their tangled fur was stained with bright red. At this moment, their eyes were filled with fear. Their palm-sized bodies trembled non-stop as they slowly walked towards Leng Ruoxua. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xN0 VEL. Calm. Chapter 1089, Little QiuQiu's Abduction, 1. When Fengde and the rest saw this, they were speechless. However, they had a better tolerance. They were already familiar with Leng Ruoxua's beastly habits, so they were used to it. When the great elder saw the appearance of the two little beasts, he was stunned with his mouth wide open. After he recovered, he couldn't help but secretly sigh. It was really like what kind of person raised what kind of beast. That little girl's beasts were actually the same as her, two extremely black-bellied little things. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, it would have been hard for him to believe that the two little beasts who had been playing with him just a moment ago had become so miserable and pitiful in the blink of an eye. No wonder when the Qi family arrived, the two little fellows immediately ran to a corner sneakily. They were busy dressing up. As you can see, their current state is caused by your cousin. These two little things were originally lively and cute, but now, they are full of fear. Moreover, after we rescued them, they did not eat, drink, or talk to anyone. They have been hiding in a corner. Young Master Qi, you must seek justice for my two poor little fellows. Leng Ruoxua's face was filled with sorrow as she spoke. In order to cooperate with their master, QiuQiu and Baobao's little bodies trembled even more violently. Ah! This, QiuQiu was speechless. The two little beasts in front of him did look very pitiful. Their originally black and bright eyes were now dull and full of fear. It seemed that they were indeed frightened. But how was he going to uphold justice? Was he supposed to beat up his cousin to vent the anger of these two little beasts? I know that this matter is a little difficult for young Master Qi, but from my perspective, I can't help but vent my anger for my beastie. Sigh. Leng Ruoxua's face was also filled with a difficult expression. Then I wonder how can I let Miss Ling's beastie vent its anger? QiuQiu could not help but ask. You'll have to ask my beastie. They're the ones being bullied. As long as they're satisfied, I'm satisfied. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Then, she turned to her beastie and said, QiuQiu, baby, this brother Qi is going to avenge you. If you have any requests, just let me know. Ah. After listening to Leng Ruoxue's words, QiuQiu was speechless again. He didn't expect Miss Leng to let the two underaged little beasts make their own requests. What could these two little fellows possibly come up with? Thinking of this, he felt a lot more at ease. However, it didn't take long for him to know how wrong he was. Because, these two little guys were black-hearted. Really? Brother Qi, you can make the decision. QiuQiu's clear eyes were filled with confusion, but its voice was soft and sweet, giving people a very comfortable feeling. Don't worry, Brother Qi can still make such a decision. QiuQiu's heart softened when he heard the sweet child's voice. But we don't believe it. The baby's suspicion was more obvious. Compared to QiuQiu's obedient behavior, it was a rebellious little fellow. Brother Qi, you keep your word. I definitely won't lie to a child. QiuQiu was so depressed that he almost swore an oath. He couldn't help but think to himself, why isn't this little guy cute? Couldn't it be as obedient as the little thing just now? Then you'll have to show me some evidence. Bao Bao thought for a while and said very seriously. Ah. I wonder what kind of evidence you want. QiuQiu asked curiously. That woman found us cute, so she made us look like this. We want to make her look like this too. The baby said like a little nationalistic youth. As he spoke, he clenched his little fists. Ah. She's already in a terrible state. QiuQiu said honestly. But we haven't even made a move yet. Bao Bao said unyieldingly. She was clearly implying that no matter how miserable she was, it wasn't caused by them, so it didn't count. Then if I let you vent your anger on her and beat her up, you won't hold it against me anymore? QiuQiu asked carefully. Why was this little fellow so difficult to deal with? Well, see. However, we're injured, so you'll have to pay for the medical expenses. The baby said again. Yes, yes. The medical expenses are definitely not a problem. QiuQiu nodded. In his heart, how much could the medical expenses of these two little beasts cost? He should be able to settle it with some delicious food. Then, Brother Qi, make an oath. I'm afraid you'll go back on your word. Bao Bao suggested. I have to swear. Don't you trust Brother Qi? QiuQiu was helpless. Oaths in the divine world could not be casually made. Otherwise, if he failed to do so, he would end up in a miserable state. Brother Qi, are you afraid? So Brother Qi was just coaxing us to play. The baby said with a disappointed look. His wrinkled little face clearly said, I told you you didn't trust me. I'm not afraid. I'll just make an oath. QiuQiu didn't want to be looked down upon by an underaged little beast, so he could only bite the bullet and say. Brother Qi, repeat after me. Bao Bao said with a smile, completely different from the angry young man earlier. All right then. QiuQiu nodded. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xN0VEL. Qi Momo, because my cousin injured two innocent and cute little beasts, am willing to compensate them on behalf of the Qi clan and satisfy all their requests. If I break the oath, I'll become a fool and my cousin will become an ugly monster. The baby said loudly. When QiuQiu first started reciting it with Bao Bao, he didn't find anything wrong with it. However, in the end, he realized that if he went back on his oath, not only would he become a fool, but his cousin would also become an ugly monster. However, once an oath was made, it couldn't be stopped, so he could only follow Bao Bao's instructions and fulfill the contents of the oath. After making their vows, the two little beasts were overjoyed. However, QiuQiu was extremely depressed. He felt that he had been tricked by the two seemingly innocent and cute little beasts. If this were to spread out, he would become the laughing stock of others. However, the uncooked rice had already been cooked. There was no point in him being depressed. Now, his only hope was that these two little beasts were not too difficult to deal with. Otherwise, wouldn't he really become a fool? Brother Qi, can you fulfill your promise to us now? Little QiuQiu asked in a soft voice. Its originally dim eyes also became clear and filled with anticipation. Chapter 1090, Little QiuQiu's Abduction, 2, I can. QiuQiu couldn't refuse such a pure gaze and quickly responded. Then hand over the woman who injured us first. Little QiuQiu pleaded. All right, he said. QiuQiu nodded and ordered his subordinates to bring his cousin over. When the young woman was brought here and saw Leng Ruoxue and the rest, a bloodthirsty look immediately appeared in her eyes. Not only did she remember these people, but she was also preparing to settle the score with them. She didn't expect it to come so soon. She couldn't help but sneer in her heart. However, she didn't feel smug for long before she was shocked by her cousin's shocking words. I've already had someone bring her here. You can take your revenge now. QiuQiu said without any emotion. QiuQiu. Do you even know what you're saying? How can you join forces with outsiders to deal with me? The young woman immediately questioned QiuQiu. Shut up. This is all your fault, and you still have the face to say it. QiuQiu said loudly. If it wasn't for his aunt's good treatment of him, he wouldn't have bothered to care about this insensible cousin. Leng Ruoxue and the others had Mo Yen backing them up. Even if this cousin was the young mistress of the Qi family, when it came to the Qi family's interests, this useless cousin would probably be abandoned by the Qi family. Everything he did was for her own good. However, he was very clear that this willful cousin would not understand, and he did not want to explain anything. I only took a fancy to those two beasts, what's wrong with that? It's all because of them that I'm in this state. The young lady pointed at Leng Ruoxue and the rest and said in dissatisfaction. Indeed, she did not look good now. Her originally beautiful face had turned into a fat pig's head and her hands were swollen like two big pig trotters. However, what was more unacceptable to her was that QiuQiu, as her brother, not only did not avenge her, but he even wanted to hand her over to the two little beasts. This was really intolerable. We're not animals. QiuQiu and Baobao's eyes were filled with tears as they choked out. If you guys aren't animals, then am I? The young woman shouted angrily. At least you have some self-awareness. Baobao said in satisfaction. Tears were still swimming in her eyes, and they were in danger of falling at any moment. What are you two kids waiting for? Hurry up and take revenge. At this time, First Elder could not help but urge. Brother Qi, we're too young. Can we ask for help? Little QiuQiu looked up at QiuQiu and asked. You can't let your master help you. QiuQiu said after some thought. If Leng Ruoxue were to make a move, this cousin of his would probably lose her life. Well, ask Beastie for help. Big sister doesn't need to do it. Little QiuQiu had a look of, don't worry. He said. Well, that's good. Yes, QiuQiu replied. He looked at the two little ones and knew that it would be difficult for them to take revenge on their own. Thank you, Brother Qi, you're such a good person. Little QiuQiu tried to please him. Hee hee. QiuQiu could only laugh drily and thought to himself, so this little thing is admitting that I'm a good person now. These two little fellows were still very wary of him just now. Big sister, can you let Big Brother and the rest come out and help us take revenge? Little QiuQiu requested of Leng Ruoxue. Sure. Leng Ruoxue nodded. With a thought, she moved her precious little beasts out of the bangle. As soon as Baby and the other beasts came out, they immediately surrounded QiuQiu and Baby and roared angrily, Damn it, who did this to you? It's her. QiuQiu and Baby's two little claws pointed at the young woman in unison. Damn it, you're really looking for death. Brothers, let's go and teach her a good lesson. The baby gave the order, and the little beasts rushed toward the young woman as fast as lightning. In an instant, the young woman's body was left with bloody marks and her clothes were torn. The pain made her scream continuously. However, no matter how she dodged, she could not escape from the few little beasts that were tightly wrapped around her like ghosts. As for Baby and the other beasts, they had been in the bracelet for too long and had been holding it in for a long time. Now that they finally had a chance to come out, of course, they had to vent their anger. Therefore, this unlucky and miserable woman became their first target. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xN0VEL. Arg. Help me. The young woman kept calling for help. Miss Leng, can you make them stop? QiuQiu couldn't stand it anymore and couldn't help but plead. His cousin's current appearance was really too miserable. Don't worry, young Master Qi, they know what they're doing. They won't kill anyone. Leng Ruoxue smiled as she consoled him. Oh. QiuQiu could tell that Leng Ruoxue was only trying to save his cousin's life. Fortunately, he wasn't the one who offended her. Otherwise, he didn't know what would happen to him. However, it was better to live than to lose his life. He could not help but comfort himself. Don't worry, young man from the Qi family. The little fox will give you face and not take her life. Lu Feng also consoled. Your Excellency Lu Feng, why are you here? It was only then that QiuQiu noticed Lu Feng's presence. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Actually, he couldn't be blamed for having bad eyesight. It was just that Leng Ruoxue had so many subordinates, and Lu Feng was mixed in with them. If Lu Feng hadn't suddenly spoken up, he really wouldn't have noticed him. Of course it's for my disciple, Lu Feng pointed at the disheveled old man and said. Hee hee. Congratulations to your Excellency Lu Feng for accepting such a good disciple. QiuQiu said enviously. He recognized this old man and knew that he was one of Leng Ruoxue's men. However, he did not expect that the Flowing Wind Pavilion would take this old man as a disciple. If that was the case, Leng Ruoxue would have another strong backer. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief at his decision. Fortunately, he had chosen to befriend these people, otherwise, if he had offended them, the Qi clan's losses would definitely be incalculable. At this moment, his cousin's injury was nothing in his eyes. After all, this matter was caused by his stubborn cousin. Even if the family head knew about this, he would probably make the same decision. Chapter 1091, Little QiuQiu's Abduction, 3. Then, QiuQiu continued to chat with Lu Feng, and his cousin who was still suffering had long been forgotten. It was only when he was about to leave that he remembered his cousin who had fainted from the pain. Let's carry Miss back. Everyone, I'll take my leave first. See you tomorrow. QiuQiu bowed slightly and left with his subordinates. Hey, why did you leave? We haven't even paid for our medical fees. The baby shouted as he watched QiuQiu and the others leave. Its words almost made QiuQiu and the rest fall. However, they did not turn back and even QiuQiu continued walking as if he did not hear anything. As for his subordinates, they were all thinking the same thing in their hearts. They had already beaten the young miss to a pulp, yet that little beast still remembered their medical expenses. Then who was he going to ask for his young lad's medical expenses? Sister, that brother Qi is not a good person. He ran away without paying us back the money he owed us. Bao Bao complained to Leng Ruoxue. QiuQiu had suddenly become a bad person in its heart. What are you afraid of? Didn't he make an oath? The monk can run away, but the temple can also run away. If he doesn't pay, well, go to the Qi family to ask for it. Leng Ruoxue hugged the baby and consoled him. Yes, yes. The medical expenses must be doubled. Bao Bao laughed evilly. One man and one beast echoed each other, making the four elders break out in cold sweat. However, looking at Feng De and the others' calm and composed appearance, the four couldn't help but sigh from the bottom of their hearts. They still had to train. Grandpa First Elder, you have to help us. Little QiuQiu suddenly said. Ah. Little QiuQiu, how do you want me to help you? The First Elder said helplessly. He would definitely help him, but this little thing couldn't be scheming against him, right? If you go to the Qi family to ask for money, the Qi family definitely won't dare to not give it. But if we go, little QiuQiu's face was sullen, and it couldn't continue halfway through its words. Ah. Didn't Qi make an oath? What are you all afraid of? The great elder was speechless. So this little thing wanted him to help it get its medical expenses. However, it wasn't appropriate for him to ask for medical expenses with his status, right? He hesitated. Don't worry, Great Elder Grandpa, the money we ask for will definitely match your status. If it's too little, how can we trouble you? Bao Bao, who understood First Elder's thoughts, hurriedly said. In other words, the medical expenses from the Qi family would not be small. Ah. All right then. The great elder was speechless. Although he knew that these two little fellows only wanted to use him to pull the wool over his eyes, he was actually willing to be used by them. AI. Who asked him to be unable to refuse the request of these two little fellows. It seemed that being cute did have its advantages. After the two little beasts and the First Elder finished their discussion, everyone planned to go to rest. However, before going to bed, Feng De and the others looked at the First Elder with a little sympathy before entering their respective tents. The next morning, Leng Ruoxue and the rest had just finished their breakfast and were about to enter the volcano to check out the situation when Qi came again. What are you doing here? You're a bad person. The baby's eyes were bright and watery as she said in dissatisfaction. Ah. Baby, when did I offend you? Why are you a bad person now? Qi said helplessly. He thought that he had managed to coax this little fellow yesterday. However, it had only been one night and he had become a bad person again. However, this little guy's clean appearance was really cute. No wonder his cousin was moved and wanted to take him for herself. You still haven't paid the medical fees you owe us. Bao Bao reminded. Ah. It was too late last night, I forgot. Qi said, a little embarrassed. In fact, he felt that he had lost face, so he left in a hurry last night. As for the medical expenses of the two little beasts, he had made an oath, how could he renege on it? Then pay us now. The baby stretched out his little paw and handed it to Qi. Ah. All right. Qi took out a piece of high-grade crystal and placed it on the baby's little paw. What is this? Bao Bao looked at the jingsher in her hand with dissatisfaction. Why did she give it this broken thing? It wasn't like there weren't any other big sister's space that was better than this, so it didn't care. High-grade crystal stones. Not only can you use them for cultivation, but you can also spend them like money. Are you satisfied? Qi explained. In his heart, all beasties should like jingsher. After all, it could help them cultivate. Unfortunately, he didn't know that he was facing a little beast that wasn't interested in jingsher. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xn0 VEL. Calm, I don't want this thing. Give me something useful. After the baby finished speaking, he threw the crystal that was emitting a light blue light back to Qi. Ah. This is very useful, baby, you're still young and don't understand. This thing really is useful. Qi tried his best to persuade her, but the baby turned his head to the other side and did not even look at him. Baby, what do you want? Qi sighed softly and asked helplessly. These little things were too difficult to take care of. He really didn't know how Leng Ruoxue raised them. I only want heavenly treasures, nothing else. The baby opened her mouth and said. Ah. You're just a little beast, what do you want heavenly treasures for? You don't even know how to refine pills. QiuQiu asked in confusion. You're so stupid. It's only natural for beastie to like heavenly treasures. Otherwise, why would there be a guardian beast beside heavenly treasures? Besides, if beastie wants to eat heavenly treasures, there's no need to refine them into pills. Bao Bao said with a look of disdain. That would be a waste. QiuQiu said softly, but he felt depressed in his heart. Boo-hoo. He was actually looked down upon by an underaged little beast. That's my business. Anyway, our medical expenses can only be heavenly treasures. Otherwise, you'll fail to fulfill your promise and become a fool. Bao Bao reminded him with a wicked heart. Ah. All right then. However, I don't have any heavenly treasures on me right now. If you want them, you must come with me to the Qi family to get them. QiuQiu said in resignation. Sure, but only after we're done with our business. Bao Bao said. Are you guys going into the volcano? QiuQiu couldn't help but ask. Yesterday, he had heard Ling Ruoxue mention that they were going to enter the volcano to train. However, they had been blocked by the erupting lava. Chapter 1092, Little QiuQiu's Abduction, 4, Yes. The baby nodded. Miss Leng, when do you plan to enter the volcano? QiuQiu turned around and asked Ling Ruoxue. We're planning to go in now. Ling Ruoxue chuckled. Can I go with you guys? QiuQiu asked. You're going into the volcano too? Ling Ruoxue was a little surprised. Wasn't QiuQiu the young master of the Qi family? He was actually willing to risk his life. And, in addition to coming to the floating cloud city to check on the losses, my other mission was to enter the volcano and find out the reason for its frequent eruptions. QiuQiu said honestly. You're the young master of the Qi family, and the Qi family actually let you take the risk? Ling Ruoxue asked the question in her heart. Am only the young master of the Qi family on the godly mainland. In the main family, my status is nothing. There's always someone who can replace you. QiuQiu said with a bitter smile. In fact, he had no other choice but to come to the floating cloud city. Oh. Since that's the case, let's enter the mountain together. Ling Ruoxue said after some thought. She had a good impression of QiuQiu, so she didn't mind traveling with him. When are we leaving? QiuQiu said impatiently. Young Master Qi, why are you more anxious than me? Ling Ruoxue chuckled as she teased. Hee hee. The sooner we find the reason, the sooner the people of Floating Cloud City can return to their homes. QiuQiu explained. Because of the volcano in the Floating Cloud City, the people of the city had temporarily moved to the nearby cities. This had also brought a burden to the other cities. Therefore, he naturally hoped to find out the cause as soon as possible to avoid causing panic. As expected of the young master of the Qi family. He is so considerate of the people. Ling Ruoxue praised. The Floating Cloud City belongs to the Qi clan after all, so I should try my best. QiuQiu said, a little embarrassed. Let's go now. Ling Ruoxue said as she looked at the crowd. Following that, QiuQiu led his subordinates and followed Ling Ruoxue's group towards the volcano. When Ling Ruoxue and the rest arrived at this nameless volcano again, they could feel the soaring heat even when they were still at the foot of the mountain. It was still frighteningly hot. Miss, why is it still so hot here? Feng De was speechless. The temperature of this volcano was even higher than the biggest volcano in the godly mainland, the Howling Moon volcano. He could even feel that his hair had been burnt. This volcano has erupted for several days. It's normal to have such a temperature. Ling Ruoxue said. At the foot of the mountain, traces of magma that had yet to completely solidify could still be seen. The places with a lot of magma were still bubbling, and flames would appear from time to time. When Ling Ruoxue saw this, she couldn't help but hesitate. She didn't know if the volcano would erupt again. If they entered the mountain now and the volcano erupted, they would be in danger. However, just as she was thinking about it, QiuQiu suddenly sent her a voice transmission, "Big sister, quickly enter the mountain. It's about to escape." "Who's going to escape?" Leng Ruoxua transmitted her voice in confusion. "The divine flame. The divine flame is about to escape." The divine flame had sensed their auras, so it was so afraid that it wanted to escape. He couldn't let it escape. This cluster of divine fire already had intelligence and was about to advance in rank. If he could catch it, it would be of great benefit to it. Thinking of this, QiuQiu became even more excited. "There's a divine flame here." Leng Ruoxua was pleasantly surprised. She never thought that this unassuming little volcano would actually hide the divine fire that they had been searching for so long. "There are." "Yes, and not only has it developed intelligence, but it's also about to advance," QiuQiu said happily. Hearing QiuQiu's words, Leng Ruoxua no longer hesitated and immediately said to the crowd, "Let's go in and take a look. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xN0VEL. Miss Leng, it seems that the volcano has not completely stabilized yet. Why don't we wait for a few more days?" Qi Rui suggested. "Sister, we can't wait anymore." Before Leng Ruoxua could reply, little QiuQiu transmitted its voice anxiously. A divine fire with intelligence was a good thing. If he let it escape, he would regret it to death. "It's okay. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Maybe we'll have a big harvest," Leng Ruoxua said. However, her words had a special meaning that only the demon could understand. "Miss, in that case, let's go in," Fengde said anxiously. "With QiuQiu here, there must be something good inside. Otherwise, how could QiuQiu, who was in Miss' arms, be so frivolous?" "Yes." Leng Ruoxua nodded and led Fengde and the rest towards the entrance of the volcano. Qi Rui followed after her. When they reached the entrance of the volcano, Leng Ruoxua and the rest floated in the air. They passed the lava that was blocking the entrance and headed deeper into the volcano. As Leng Ruoxua walked, she observed the situation in the mountains while conversing with QiuQiu in her heart. "QiuQiu, where is the divine fire now?" After walking for a while, Leng Ruoxua could not help but ask. "Sister, that divine fire is very cunning. It knows that we've entered. It doesn't dare to stay in a fixed position and is playing hide-and-seek with us," QiuQiu said helplessly. Although it could sense the divine fire could also sense them. Therefore, the divine fire wouldn't stop for long wherever they went. When QiuQiu told Leng Ruoxua about the situation, Leng Ruoxua stopped in her tracks and furrowed her brows in deep thought. When Fengde and the others saw this, they knew that the young lady had encountered a difficult problem. Therefore, they had a tacit understanding not to disturb her. When Lu Feng wanted to speak, his mouth was immediately covered and he was warned in a low voice, "Don't be noisy. Can't you see that Miss is thinking?" "Ah." Lu Feng was speechless. He realized that the little fox's subordinates were really overbearing. When the little fox was thinking, they couldn't even speak. Woo! They were really bullying people. After a moment's silence, Leng Ruoxua lifted her beautiful eyes to look at the crowd and said, "Great Elder, it'll have to trouble you to take Fengde and the others back to the encampment. I'll stay here with the demon. Young Master Qi, you should go back too. I'll give you a satisfactory answer later. Little fox, what's the point of you staying here with him when you want us to go back?" Lu Feng said with great interest. The word gossip was written on his handsome face. Chapter 1093, Little QiuQiu's Abduction, 5, You'll know when the time comes. You'll definitely be satisfied. Leng Ruoxua laughed evilly. Even Lu Feng's tools were unable to find any traces of the divine flame. It seemed like the divine flame was indeed scheming and knew how to hide. Why don't you let me stay and help? Lu Feng said shamelessly, but he couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "Humph. This little fox must have something fun to do and didn't want them to participate. That won't do." Therefore, he had to stay as a witness. "It's good enough that you're not making things worse. I can't trust you," Leng Ruoxue said without giving him any face. "Little fox, don't be like this." Lu Feng's face was bitter, depressed to the extreme. "No means no. You'll only get in the way if you stay here, so you just have to stay in the encampment. Also, you have to protect my family and subordinates along the way. Otherwise, you'll be held responsible," Leng Ruoxue said, leaving no room for discussion. "Stinky brat, come back with me. Don't give this little girl any more trouble." At this moment, the first elder spoke up. He was very clear that the little girl had asked them all to return because she had discovered something. With so many of them present, it was likely that the thing would not come out. However, he didn't mind Leng Ruoxue asking them to go back first because he believed that Leng Ruoxue would explain it to them. After all, that lass had even chased away her own family and subordinates. "Oh." Lu Feng unwillingly nodded his head and followed the great elder and the others out of the volcano. On the way back to the encampment, Lu Feng was still complaining non-stop, until Feng De couldn't bear it anymore and shouted, "Lu Feng, are you done? Aren't you worried about the little fox's safety?" Lu Feng looked at Feng De, who was glaring at him angrily, and asked in a wrong tone. "My lattice survival ability is much higher than yours. If we stay there, we will only drag her down. So, we just have to stay in the encampment and wait for her to come back. You better shut your mouth and stop talking about it. Otherwise, I will have to block your mouth," Feng De warned. "Yup. That granddaughter of mine is very smart, so you don't have to worry about her safety." Leng Qingtian held back his laughter and consoled Lu Feng. "Oh." Lu Feng responded softly, but his eyes glared fiercely at the first elder, Mo Yan, and Lu Yu. That damned guy, he actually laughed when he was being lectured. He really had no sympathy. However, even if he felt embarrassed, he still had to follow them back to the base. After the others had left, Leng Ruoxue then explained the situation to the demon. Following that, the two of them entered the bracelet, planning to wait for the fire to start. 3 days later. The divine flame did not move at all. Moreover, after sensing that Feng De and the others had left, the divine flame no longer tried to escape. However, it was still very cautious as it circled around the volcano. It did not even stay in the same place for too long. In the bracelet. This divine flame is quite smart. The demon, who had been observing the movements of the divine fire through the light screen, said with a faint smile. "Yup. It's been 3 days and the divine fire hasn't come in our direction. I wonder how long we'll have to wait." Leng Ruoxue said gloomily. It seemed like waiting for the fire to come would not work. However, she didn't dare to move easily, for fear of being discovered by the careful divine fire. "Big sister, capturing a divine flame is not an easy task. I can see that this divine flame has existed in this world for at least several tens of thousands of years. Its intelligence is not inferior to any human's. Moreover, it is at a crucial moment in its advancement, so it naturally has to be extra careful. After all, if it is caught while it is advancing, then its tens of thousands of years of cultivation will all turn into bubbles." QiuQiu said. "You're saying that this divine flame also knows what will happen to it if it gets caught?" Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. "Sister, all sprites born from the spiritual qi of heaven and earth are very clear about this. That's why they would do everything possible to avoid humans. Humans are the greatest enemies of these natural treasures." QiuQiu explained. "Ah. I just want to help the old man advance, I don't intend to take his life," Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. She hated to hurt these little fellows who had already developed their own intelligence. However, she had to do something about the rotten old man. "Sister, if you want your natal flame to advance, you must fuse with a flame of a higher level. Once this divine flame is fused, it will no longer be the original one. QiuQiu said in a slightly frustrated manner. Spirits that already had their own thoughts would not like to become a part of others. Therefore, unless they could harden their hearts, they could only let go of that divine flame. Is there no other way? I didn't want to wipe out the intelligence of that divine flame. Leng Ruoxue sighed softly. The cultivation of an elf was much more difficult than that of humans and beasts. Hence, she could not bear to hurt a little fellow who had been cultivating for tens of thousands of years. I only know of this one method. QiuQiu thought for a while and said with certainty. Although he understood plant-type sprites, he was not clear about divine fire at all. Please keep reading 0NMYB0XN0VEL. Calm, big sister, let's not worry about that for now. Let's capture that divine flame first. Maybe it has a good idea. QiuQiu suggested. Yes, that's the only way. Leng Ruoxue nodded. After another 2 days, the divine fire that Leng Ruoxue and the demon had been waiting for finally began to move towards their direction. Through the screen, Leng Ruoxue held her breath as she stared intently at the dark red flame that was slowly drifting through the screen. This flame was extremely small and exquisite. It was only the size of a baby's pinky finger. The outer layer of the flame flickered with a dazzling radiance, and wherever it went, everything would be charred black. After moving around for 2 days, the cautious divine fire was getting closer to Leng Ruoxue's location. After a long time. Just as the divine flame neared Leng Ruoxue's position, she and the demon suddenly appeared and used a specially made light net to capture the divine flame. The divine flame was then enveloped by a ball of white light. The divine flame struggled intensely, but it could not break free from the net of light. Its scorching temperature could not melt the net either. After understanding all this, the divine flame panicked. Not long after, the sound of weeping could be heard from the net. Leng Ruoxue's head started to throb when she heard the tender voice. Why is it another child? What should he do? I don't want to die. I beg you to let me go. A tender child's voice entered Leng Ruoxue's ears. You won't die. I just need your help with something. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. I'm still young, I can't help you much. The divine flame said in a small voice. Please let me go. I'm about to break through. The divine flame pleaded again. Little fire seed, do you think you can resist the heavenly tribulation by yourself? Why don't you follow my sister in the future? I'll guarantee that you'll live a good life. QiuQiu coaxed and used cannonballs on the divine fire. Leng Ruoxue, who was carrying QiuQiu, listened to QiuQiu's arrogant words and couldn't help but feel a few black lines sliding down her forehead. She thought to herself, who did QiuQiu learn these words from? AI. Where did her innocent and cute little QiuQiu go? What do you mean by good food and good wine? The divine flame asked in a low voice. Its food was lava and it had never eaten anything else. It means good food and drink. QiuQiu thought for a moment and explained. It's more delicious than lava. The divine flame asked curiously. Of course, how is it? Just follow my sister. QiuQiu pressed on. It was bent on keeping this divine flame into Leng Ruoxue's bag. Can I consider it? The divine flame said hesitantly. What's there to consider? You'll definitely regret it at that time. Besides, even if you succeed in advancing, can you guarantee that you can live a long life? Won't be discovered. In other people's hands, they didn't receive such good treatment as in my sister's hands. QiuQiu reminded. Then can I not die? The divine flame was tempted, but it was also worried that it would die. Who said I want you to die? Don't scare yourself. I never kill elves. QiuQiu promised. Then I agree. I'll follow your sister from now on. The divine flame thought for a moment and relented. It then added, however, I have to break through first before I can leave with you. No problem, I will definitely help you. QiuQiu said confidently. Chapter 1094, The Divine Flame Tribulation, 1, Thank you. I want to ask who your sister is. The divine flame said in embarrassment. It's this stunning beauty who's hugging me. Little QiuQiu said a little narcissistically. When Leng Ruoxue heard QiuQiu's words, she couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. She thought to herself, does a cluster of divine flames know what an absolute beauty is? QiuQiu, we have to keep a low profile. Oh. The divine flame nodded, not fully understanding. Suddenly, the sky was filled with dark clouds, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. Seeing this, the divine flame became nervous. It kept jumping around in the net of light while shouting, Heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation is coming. Leng Ruoxue looked at the sky that was getting darker and darker. The dark clouds in the sky had already started to gather together. Not long after, the dark clouds had covered the sky above Leng Ruoxue and the demon. Shua, we have to leave the tribulation clouds range. Otherwise, we'll be affected as well. The demon child warned. Moreover, once they were treated as spirits by the tribulation clouds, the might of the heavenly tribulation would increase by several times. In that case, it would be even more difficult for the divine flame to advance. What about the divine flame? Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but ask. QiuQiu had already said that it would help the divine fire, so she couldn't just ignore it, right? Moreover, the divine flame had already agreed to leave with her. In this case, this little flame was also considered one of them. Shua, it has to rely on itself for this matter. We can't help much, but you can leave some fire attribute pills for it. We can't do anything about the rest. The demon said after thinking for a while. Well, all right then. Leng Ruoxue nodded. She also knew that these fairies who had cultivated for at least 10,000 years had to go through the test of the heavenly tribulation before they could transform. Otherwise, the heavens would not allow these heaven-defying little things to exist in this world. Their heavenly tribulation was much more difficult than the advancement of humans and beasts. Hence, she was not willing to hurt them. At the thought of this, Leng Ruoxue took out a white jade bottle and released the divine fire from the light net. Divine fire, here is a bottle of fire-type medicinal pills. If you can't withstand the tribulation, you can take one pill. However, I don't know if this pill will be useful to your divine fire. As for the rest, you'll have to rely on yourself. It's useful. Thank you, sister. The divine flame said gratefully. It then separated an even smaller flame to hold the small jade bottle, waiting for the heavenly tribulation to descend. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue carried QiuQiu and the demon out of the heavenly tribulation's range. They observed from afar. He waited for a long time. The heavenly tribulation that had been brewing for a long time finally descended from the sky. A black heavenly lightning bolt that was as thick as a water bucket and flickered with electric sparks directly enveloped the tiny divine flame. Leng Ruoxue's heart could not help but jump into her throat when she saw this scene. The area of the first heavenly lightning bolt was already so huge. He wondered if the cluster of divine fire could swallow it. Continue reading on MYB0XN0VEL. Calm when she had nothing to do these few days, she had deliberately read some books on how elves could advance, among which there was also information on divine fire. The divine fire's tribulation was to devour all the tribulation lightning. There were at least 9 tribulation lightning bolts and at most 81 tribulation lightning bolts. Although he didn't know which type the divine fire had encountered, no matter what, if they were all of the same size, the tiny divine fire would be stuffed. Perhaps I should prepare some medicine that helps with its digestion, Leng Ruoxue thought to herself. Big sister, don't worry. It will definitely succeed. QiuQiu sneaked a peek at Leng Ruoxue's thoughts and chuckled. It was born to search for treasures of heaven and earth, so no one knew the habits of those treasures better than it. If those little guys didn't have some means of self-protection, they wouldn't have the chance to transform. What's more, this time, there were medicinal pills prepared by its sister for the divine fire. So, in its opinion, the divine fire's transformation was almost certain. There was no need to worry at all. I'm just afraid it'll hold. Len Ruoxue said, a little embarrassed. Hee, Shua, you're so cute. Don't worry, the tribulation lightning has different effects on the divine fire. If it really can't eat it, the demons stopped halfway through. However, Len Ruoxue understood what he meant. These lightning tribulations were definitely a huge test for the divine fire. If the divine fire couldn't be completely fused, it would have to start all over again and turn into an unconscious flame that would drift around in the world. After about an hour, the first tribulation lightning would be extinguished by the divine fire. Moreover, looking at the panting appearance of the divine fire, it seemed that it had used a lot of energy. When Len Ruoxue saw this, she could not help but start to worry. It was only the first tribulation lightning bolt, and the divine fire had already taken so long to devour it. If a few more bolts were to come, could the divine fire really take it? AI. It really wasn't easy to become an elf who could transform. At the thought of this, Len Ruoxue made up her mind to treat these little fellows even better in the future. This was the first time she had seen a fairy take human form, so she was quite shocked. Just as Len Ruoxue was thinking to herself, the lightning tribulation that had been brewing for a while descended once more. This time, the divine flames took even longer to devour. Then, the third, the fourth. Until the ninth tribulation lightning descended, it had already taken a day to devour the divine fire. The divine flame did not consume the elixir that Len Ruoxue had given it during the first 8 lightning strikes. However, the power of the 9th lightning strike was at least 10 times stronger than the first 8. The divine flame felt that it could not hold on any longer, so it opened the bottle cap and consumed an elixir. After consuming the elixir, the divine flame felt that its body was filled with fighting spirit again. It was even more confident. The divine flame had used up more than half a day's time to resist the 9th lightning tribulation. At this moment, Len Ruoxue and the demon had brought QiuQiu into the bracelet and were observing the divine flame's advancement and transformation through the light screen. It was only until the divine fire had devoured the 9th lightning tribulation that Len Ruoxue's tensed heart was finally half at ease. However, when she saw that the dark clouds in the sky had not dispersed, she could not help but feel suspicious. Could there still be more lightning tribulations? Just as she was thinking about this, another bolt of lightning fell from the sky and struck the divine flame. Poor little thing. I didn't expect it to have more than 9 bolts of lightning. Looking at the light screen, Green Vessel said with a little sympathy. Most plant-type sprites had 9 heavenly tribulations. However, there were a few more heaven-defying sprites that had more than 9 heavenly tribulations. Therefore, many sprites failed to take form. However, once they succeeded in taking form, their power would be incomparable to that of ordinary sprites. Chapter 1095, The Divine Flame Tribulation, 2, Sister, you must make this little fellow listen to you. If he succeeds in transforming, he won't be suitable for the disheveled old man to fuse with. QiuQiu said. I know. I won't hurt this little fellow. I'll think of another way for the disheveled old man. Len Ruoxue nodded. Sister, I don't mean it that way. I mean, if this little guy successfully transforms, I'm afraid he will be a very destructive little thing. If he is not properly restrained, once he causes a big disaster, the heavens will not tolerate his existence. Therefore, you must make him listen to you. QiuQiu said in a reserved manner. Yes. Len Ruoxue nodded. The destructive power of a fire attribute spirit was indeed not something that an ordinary spirit could compare to. As time passed, another 3 days had passed, but the divine fire's tribulation had yet to end. In the past 3 days, the divine flame had been baptized by nearly 30 tribulation lightning bolts. The divine flame had grown from the size of a baby's finger to the size of a baby's fist. The flame was red with a hint of purple, and it was so hot that it had dried up the lava. The surrounding mountains had long been charred black. Just as the divine flame was undergoing its tribulation, Ling Qingtian and the others in the floating cloud city looked at the dark sky not far away. Their hearts could not help but be on tenterhooks. Although they really wanted to go over and take a look, they did not dare to act rashly. Has Miss Leng not returned yet? QiuQiu, who had been reporting for several days, asked without changing his tone. No, I didn't, Fengde replied indifferently, then he buried his head and went back to his work. It's been almost half a month. Why don't we go to the volcano and take a look? QiuQiu suggested. For what? Young miss will be fine, don't go and add to her troubles. Fengde said unhappily. He was not worried about his lattice safety, but he did not know what the situation was over there, so he could not put his heart at ease. Moreover, according to the first elder, the lightning was very unusual. It seemed like the elves were undergoing a tribulation. However, he had never seen the elves' tribulation before, so he was not too sure. However, he had warned them not to get too close to it in case they were affected. Fengde and the others were clear in their hearts. They knew that the great elder's guess should be close to the mark. Otherwise, the young lady would not have let them leave. However, who would be undergoing the tribulation? QiuQiu was a little depressed. He had good intentions, why couldn't these people understand? Woo! It has been so many days, but Miss Leng has not returned. I wonder how she is doing. Young Master Qi, if you don't have anything else to say, you should take care of your cousin. Don't let her come here and cause a scene. Otherwise, if she annoys me, don't blame me for being ruthless. Fengde warned. These days, QiuQiu's cousin would come over to scold her for no reason. If it weren't for the fact that they cared about the young lady, they wouldn't have allowed her to stay until now. Unfortunately, that woman didn't know that the ball on her neck was only temporarily with her. Continue reading on MYB0XN0VEL. Calm, I told her, but she wouldn't listen. QiuQiu said helplessly. His cousin would only think of him when she got into trouble. She would not usually listen to him, so he was helpless. Then lock her up. The great elder said unhappily. He really didn't know how the Qi family had raised their daughter. Even though the Qi family wasn't the main family in the divine mainland, it was still a failure to have raised a daughter like this. All right, he said. Yes, QiuQiu replied. Actually, he had thought of locking his cousin up, but he couldn't stand her making a scene, so he let her do as she pleased. However, now that she had suggested it, and this old man's status was not ordinary, he had no choice but to listen. I say, Qi family brat, you failed as a young master. How can I let a woman ride on my head? The disheveled old man could not help but grumble. QiuQiu was speechless. He was indeed a failure. Every family has its own problems, so don't blame him. The great elder pleaded. The waters of the great clans were deep. Being in a big family, there were many things to worry about. Therefore, he could understand the Qi family's helplessness. I don't blame him. However, if his cousin comes again, or if comes back and finds out about all this, I can't guarantee what kind of ending that cousin of his will have. That girl can't tolerate sand in her eyes. The disheveled old man reminded. If Fengde and the others were not so focused on they would not have bothered with QiuQiu's cousin, which led to the woman coming to make a scene again and again. Young man from the Qi family, you have to keep an eye on that woman. If anyone from the Qi family has any suspicions, tell them to come and ask me. The first elder thought for a while and decided to shoulder this responsibility for QiuQiu. Thank you for your understanding, first elder. QiuQiu said gratefully. There's no need to thank me. Also, did you forget what I said? Don't call me Great Elder. Right now, I'm just an old man hanging out with a little girl. The Great Elder reminded. If it wasn't necessary, he didn't want to reveal his identity to avoid trouble. Ah. Then what should I call you? QiuQiu said nervously. The Great Elder's status was quite high. Even his grandfather, the patriarch, had to be respectful in front of the Great Elder, let alone a junior like him. It should be known that the Great Elder had a wide range of friends in the divine realm. Moreover, he was a great figure of the same generation as the patriarch of the Ning family. Thus, he naturally had to be more respectful. Just call me old man. The Great Elder said after some thought. Although he looked very young on the outside, he had always thought of himself as an old man. Old man is my name, you can change it. The old man immediately protested when he heard that his name was about to be infringed. Ah. Then you can call me Uncle Lu. First Elder said after some thought. Uncle Lu, that sounds like the butler's name. When Lu Feng heard this, he couldn't help but laugh wildly. He was deeply speechless about this old man's ability to come up with names. Fortunately, his and his brother's names were not given by this damn old man, otherwise, he would be depressed to death. What's wrong with the butler? I'll be this little girl's housekeeper from now on, and all of you have to listen to me because you're now her subordinates. The Great Elder blew at his beard and glared at him. He kept cursing in his heart. This brat didn't even leave him any face in front of outsiders. Humph. If he had the chance, he would definitely kill him. Chapter 1096, The Divine Flame Tribulation, 3, Kid Chi, you can call me Uncle Lu from now on. Remember that. I am the little girl's housekeeper. As for the three of them, they are her subordinates. The Great Elder warned. In other words, he was telling them not to reveal their identities. Yes, Uncle Lu. QiuQiu replied helplessly. You can't guess the thoughts of these big shots. Just like that, the First Elder, Mo Yen, Lu Feng, and Lu Yu's identities were temporarily confirmed. When Len Ruoxue returned and found out that she had a housekeeper and 3 subordinates, she was so shocked that her jaw almost dropped. Could she afford to use such a high-ranking butler and subordinate? Len Ruoxue, who was at the volcano, was completely focused on the divine fire tribulation. There were more than 60 lightning bolts now, and the size of the lightning bolts was getting smaller. However, even though she was in space, Len Ruoxue could feel that the lightning bolts were getting stronger. On the other hand, the divine flame had grown to the size of an adult's fist after being struck by more than 60 lightning tribulations. The color of the flame had turned into a deep purple, and the scorching heat had melted everything around it. Even Len Ruoxue, who was in the middle of the space, could feel the scorching heat. A few more days passed. The number of lightning bolts reached 98. As the 98th lightning bolt was swallowed by the divine fire, the size of the divine fire increased by a lot. At this time, the flame had completely turned black and purple, and the periphery of the flame was shining with a dazzling light. He looked extremely mysterious and noble. In the bracelet. QiuQiu observed the situation outside and spoke with some worry, Sister, there's only one more tribulation lightning before the divine fire's tribulation ends. However, the last tribulation lightning is also very important. I don't know if the divine fire can withstand it. I can see that the little guy's perseverance is extraordinary. Didn't he survive several dangerous situations? So, we should believe in it. Len Ruoxue consoled. Even though she was very worried, she was helpless at this moment. She had already done everything she could. Now, she could only rely on the divine flame. I hope so. The 9 heavenly tribulation during the transformation also proves that this divine flame is extraordinary. At least, ever since I gained sentience, I've never seen a fairy undergo the 9 heavenly tribulation during her transformation. QiuQiu sighed. The spirits that transcended the nine heavenly tribulation could be said to be favored by heaven and earth, but they could also be considered abandoned by heaven and earth. That was because once they successfully transcended the tribulation, they would naturally obtain many benefits. However, once they failed, it would mean that they were abandoned by heaven and earth. This was the law of nature. As Leng Ruoxue and QiuQiu were chatting, the 99th wave of the heavenly tribulation finally descended. What was different from the previous 98 heavenly tribulations was that the previous 98 heavenly tribulations were all lightning strikes with electricity within them. However, this last heavenly tribulation was completely composed of lightning. The lightning that shone with a white light might only be the size of an adult's pinky, but the energy it contained was equivalent to the sum of the previous 98 heavenly tribulations. This made Leng Ruoxue break out in cold sweat for the divine fire. Meanwhile, the divine flame that was completely focused on fighting the last heavenly tribulation still didn't know that someone was worried about it. If it knew, it would definitely be very touched. Because, for tens of thousands of years, it had only been itself, and no other creature had ever worried for it. Basically, all the living beings in this volcano would run away when they saw it. Otherwise, they would be burned to ashes by it. Continue reading on MYB0XN0VEL. Calm. The 99th heavenly tribulation bolt was extremely stubborn. No matter how hard the divine flame tried, it could not completely merge with it. The battle between the divine flame and the heavenly tribulation continued for 2 days and 2 nights, but there was still no clear winner. However, seeing that the divine flame showed no signs of defeat, Leng Ruoxue finally felt more at ease. It seemed like the first 98 bolts of lightning had greatly increased the power of the divine flame. It was just that he didn't know who would win in the end. 5 days later, the divine fire, which was already exhausted, launched the most fatal attack. This was also the divine flame's final struggle. Success or failure all depended on this. In an instant, half of the sky was burned red by the towering volcano. The small lightning bolt was also enveloped within it. Through the light screen, Leng Ruoxue could see a lightning bolt shuttling back and forth within the huge flames. It was as if it was unwilling to be fused just like that. The white lightning fled in all directions, trying to break out of the divine flame's encirclement. However, the divine flame would not let it escape so easily, because once the last heavenly tribulation succeeded, it would also mean that it had failed to pass the tribulation. In that case, why not fight to the death? In any case, the divine flame was going all out. After a long time, the white lightning trapped in the flames finally lost its fighting spirit and was slowly devoured by the divine flame. The giant flame also shrank until it was the size of a blue ball. When Leng Ruoxue and the demons saw that the divine flame's tribulation had ended, they quickly left their bracelets. However, the divine flame was in the critical stage of its transformation, so they could only watch from afar. They did not dare to get too close to it so as not to disturb it. An hour later, the burning flames had disappeared, and in its place was a fair and tender little baby. The little baby was completely naked, and his little face was unbelievably beautiful. His 2 black grape-like eyes were clear, transparent, and as pure as a spring. The moment Leng Ruoxue saw this little baby who was not even 1 year old, her love for him was overflowing. What an adorable little fellow. Leng Ruoxue picked up the little boy and said happily. Why were the appearances of these elves so adorable? Sister, thank you. The little boy said in a soft voice, a little embarrassed. What are you thanking me for? It's the result of your own hard work that you're able to transform. I didn't help much. Leng Ruoxue said honestly. If it wasn't for Big Sister's pill, I wouldn't have succeeded in my transformation. The little boy said with some lingering fear. After transforming, he knew many things that he didn't know before. Hence, only he knew how dangerous the previous heavenly tribulation was. Hence, he was very grateful to Leng Ruoxue. Hee, since you put it that way, then I'll take this credit. Leng Ruoxue laughed. To her, this was as easy as lifting a finger. However, this little fellow had remembered it in his heart. From this, it could be seen that these elves knew how to repay kindness. They were much better than some humans. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.